You stood there silently, turning your back on the world. Li Ya-in, the name everyone called you. For the first time in all these years, Ya-in had a name. After thousands of years, human life is very complicated. They are all people, yet they distinguish by country, by skin color. They name everything in life and create meanings for them. The doctor held the test results in his hand and reported to the family. The test results show that Ja-in has no problems at all, madam. Hearing that, young Shil grew even more worried and pressed the doctor. So why still can't my child speak? Then, the doctor thought for a long moment and then concluded, the boy is only 6 years old, right? It is still too early for him. She slammed the table and insisted, that is not the issue. Every time I try to talk to him, he only shows some reactions. Since he was born, he hasn't cried even once. The man stroked his chin, pondering for a long time, then said, physically the boy has nothing wrong, so I suspect whether he might have a mental illness. Youngshil tilted her head, narrowing her eyes in confusion. Mental, what? The doctor clarified his suggestion. I mean, why don't you try finding a psychologist for the boy to see? Before he finished, she erupted with extreme anger, jumped up and shouted, a psychologist? You mean I have to go to the mental hospital? What are you saying, doctor? Do you mean my child is crazy? Ya-in turned away without caring. The doctor tried to calm her. No, madam, I did not mean that. Please stay calm. But Youngshil refused to listen. Calm? How can I be calm? You glanced at her with an eye full of boredom. Ya-in began to tell her pitiful story. My mother's name is Oh Youngshil, very ignorant and arrogant. She lost her family in a battle. And not long after, Youngshil also lost her husband due to the war. She sat dazed in the evening light with her child in her arms. Youngshil glanced down at the baby. For her the world was too harsh and cruel. However, Youngshil still had a child to raise. To make a living, she carried him on her back and sold vegetables at the market. That night, the light from houses and street lamps shone dimly. The mother and child lay under a warm blanket. Ya-in suddenly remembered the few words she had said. Youngshil used to say that if children hear kind words, they will grow up well behaved. Even though Ya-in did not respond, she still always spoke. Youngshil stroked his face and softly said, Mother loves you. Ya-in watched silently with a vacant look. I could not understand what she said. But that warmth, Ya-in did not hate it at all. He turned his face to the ceiling after Youngshil had finally closed her eyes. Ya-in glanced outside as if wanting to do something. And this life. Clouds in the sky still drifted silently. Something was a little different now. The little frog sitting there snapping at prey suddenly realized something. Its eyes trembled with each small movement of the ground. When someone ran toward it by reflex, it quickly jumped away. The ragged man was being chased by a gang. He ran while glancing back to see if he had escaped. Those people pressed close behind and would not let up. At a precarious moment, he tripped over a large stone. He fell face first to the ground in panic. The leader stopped, panting and cursed. It's midnight, and you make us run like this. He trembled and staggered back, begging frantically, please, spare me. He grimaced as murderous intent radiated. What did you say? How could I let a communist live? He shouted, pleading for his life. I'm not a communist. Really, I'm not. He relented and held out a hand to reason. All right, get up and we'll talk later. If you don't stop, I'll kick your ass. What caught the leader's attention was the small shoulders standing in the clear moonlight. It was a small boy standing on a towering pole. Ya-in quietly looked down at the thugs. He stared at the boy without looking away, wondering, a kid? Ya-in silently judged them from this angle. Humans. The gang leader kindly advised him. Kid, it's dangerous up there. How did you get up there? Come down. Ya-in nodded, intending to comply. I think now is the perfect time to test it. He jumped into the endless void to the astonishment of them. As he fell, Ya-in thought to himself, the frog. He landed on the ground lightly as if on feathers and was not injured. The man behind, horrified, spoke awkwardly. What the? How could he land safely from that height? Ya-in's body glowed. He bent forward, preparing to charge. Ya-in sprinted like a bolt of lightning. The leopard. All three wore the same look of panic. Ya-in paid no attention and rushed in with bright eyes. He clenched his fist intending to deliver a powerful punch. The fat guy, fearful, raised a gun to defend reflexively. Before he could do anything, Ya-in was already in front of him, the Argentine dinosaur. He moved so fast the other two hadn't even realized the turn of events. He widened his eyes as his senses began to dim. Ya-in silently drew a conclusion. I have finished testing. A capability I have never had before. All the creatures I have ever lived with. Now I have been reborn with all their instincts. Ya-in asked himself why. He felt anguish inside, but one thing was clear. The others stood shaking like wet dogs. The other guy even peed his pants. You are. Ya-in stood silently there after sending one away. The outcome of this long journey. This life is my final life. He trembled, his mouth stammering. You. Mustering all his courage, the man shouted, Who the hell are you? Ya-in did not answer, remaining deathly silent. He coldly turned his back, making the atmosphere even more oppressive. The man anxiously waited for the result. Finally, a line of words flashed through his mind. I could have died already. They trembled when they saw the corpse of their companion. His eyes widened unnaturally, drenched in sweat. Ya-in brushed his fingers a few times to regain his composure. The fat man lay there motionless, life or death unknown. The ragged man could only gape in astonishment. Ya-in flicked his fingernail lightly, staring at it for a while. Suddenly he sensed something coming. The man threw a heavy punch to the face, catching Ya-in off guard. He rolled to the ground by sheer inertia. Ya-in lay still in one spot, one cheek swollen. That man gasped for breath as if he had just slain a great monster. It seemed Ya-in would remain down, but instead he pushed his hand against the ground to rise. It hurts. Ya-in staggered to his feet, his gaze dark and unstable. If I show nothing, then I am just an ordinary human. Seeing him able to sit up, not even groaning in pain, the man was startled, but Ya-in slowly turned to look at him with sharp, cold eyes. He was so terrified his face twisted, unable to utter a word. Overcoming his own fear, the man swung the next punch. Ya-in sat calmly, unmoving, though he already knew. The man suddenly felt pain drilling into his brain. His hands swelled at the joints, trembling. He clutched them and screamed in agony. Ya-in quietly used a superpower, Turtle. Still not appeased in anger, he seized the man's neck. It was unbelievable that Ya-in's small body could make him writhe like that. This too was one of the superpowers, chimpanzee. Ya-in whispered in his heart, as long as I reveal it. Ya-in's eyes shone so brightly that the sky was reflected in them. His breath and the man's trembling weakened. Ya-in drew back his hand, ready to deliver a decisive iron punch. I will become anything. But then a bang resounded before Ya-in could strike. The bullet had already flown. He looked down and realized the bullet had ripped open his belly, blood gushing from his mouth in his own shock. Who could have imagined the shooter was the ragged one nearly captured? Ya-in's eyes narrowed in despair. He loosened his grip and collapsed slowly to the cold ground. I was wrong. Hearing the gunshot, birds scattered from the forest. His hands trembled, making the gun shake. He dropped the gun to the ground amid a scene where no one remained alive except those still conscious. Ya-in lay motionless, not getting up this time. The man wept in terror, snot and tears streaming. Overwhelmed with fear, he abandoned everything, screaming as he ran. The last one left stood bewildered, unsure what to do. Ya-in still lay there like a corpse, no breath at all. And so it remained until morning. Ya-in's hands twitched faintly. His body reacted with them. He used all his strength to lift his head. He rolled to one side, lying on his back for comfort, thinking, I've been shot by that strange thing again. Ya-in felt the pain inside his body. It hurt so much. The bullet seemed to have pierced his organs. With faint breath, Ya-in wondered, will I die? By then the morning sky was pink, fresh and gentle. It grew brighter, heralding the sun's peak. That pink was clear in Ya-in's eyes. Even each drifting cloud above, all were contained within his gaze. The sky brightened gradually with time. Suddenly Ya-in's stomach jerked upward. Then he collapsed again, unmoving. The wound on his belly sealed as if the bullet had been pushed out. Once more Ya-in's body convulsed violently. This time water poured out of him. He coughed several times to expel it. Finished, Ya-in wiped his mouth. His face blank like one drained of blood, thinking, sea cucumber. He slowly braced his legs and stood. I survived. Ya-in stood holding his stomach, feeling pain and the air. Damn it. This survival instinct. I thought I had nothing left to endure. Yet how strange, how fascinating. Such a small body could have this ability. It's hard to understand. Maybe, I suppose that's how it is. Ya-in looked toward the empty road as if sensing something. He perked his ears to listen carefully. Ya-in whispered to himself, I can hear. Youngshil's voice, filled with worry, cried his name, Ya-in. The old folks nearby were woken by her screams. My son, muttering, who's making such noise at this hour? Youngshil searched non-stop. Where are you, Ya-in? Villagers whispered among themselves. Her boy must have run away. Youngshil stood alone in the narrow road, heartbroken, screaming hoarsely, Ya-in. She clutched her collar, tears streaming in the air. At that moment, the small figure of the boy appeared under the vast sky. Ya-in, with wounds covering his face, glanced aside. He bit his lip, letting blood trickle from the corner of his mouth. What he noticed was a bird perched on a nearby scarecrow. The bird, clueless, only stared back at him. But in a blink, Ya-in lunged and swallowed it whole. A moment later he landed on the grass, feathers scattering around. Ya-in chewed it fearlessly, grabbing a feather, telling himself, I may not be grown, but I can survive if I try. Ya-in slowly swallowed the unlucky bird, thinking, I don't even need to live with her. But then he remembered when Youngshil pinched his cheek, whispering tenderly, Mother loves you. Ya-in's eyes slowly grew calm. He turned aside, gloomily gazing that way. Then Ya-in began walking across the vast field. He trudged forward aimlessly. Back in the familiar village, two old knees collapsed to the ground. Youngshil clutched her chest, lifted her head, tears streaming, calling, Ya-in, my son. Time passed. 4 days later, evening light covered the forest trees where he trudged wearily. Ya-in sweated under the scorching sun, body exhausted. Hunger and heat drained him, his body staggering. As expected, Ya-in collapsed onto the barren ground. Each breath grew heavier, his strength depleted. He turned, panting, thinking, maybe I have a fever, and my stomach feels like it's tightening. Sprawled on the ground he wondered, is there anything I can eat? He squinted, thinking, I thought humans are omnivores. The bird he ate days ago appeared in his mind. Then an image of a snake flicking its tongue. Finally a startled rabbit. But he still didn't understand. What's the problem here? Ya-in imagined himself sinking into clear blue water. I've gone through this so many times, but I can never get used to it. His arms slowly dropped, death drawing near. Ya-in submerged in the water, bubbles floating around. It's okay, I won't regret. If this is truly the end then. Suddenly something pulled him back to reality. It was someone approaching. No one else but Youngshil. In ragged clothes, messy hair, dark ringed eyes, she saw her son not far away. His eyes showed weakness. Youngshil, seeing the pitiful sight, rushed and screamed, Ya-in. She embraced him tightly. Youngshil squeezed Ya-in, sobbing uncontrollably. In her warm arms, his thoughts shifted, as if returning from death. But now my mind is clear. I'm so hungry. I want the food she makes. With a parched mouth, hearing her cries, he grumbled, she's too noisy. He lifted his face to see Youngshil, tears and snot streaming, silently scolding. How long will she cry? Stop and give me food. Ya-in opened his dazed eyes amid her sobs. Right then, he gently gripped her arm. Ya-in only wanted to see Youngshil smile wide, rather than weeping so, though he didn't know what that meant. Ya-in spoke his first word ever. Her eyes widened. The word she always said with a warm smile. Ya-in looked up at his mother and softly said, I love you, Mom. Once again tears rolled down her cheeks, lips trembling. After speaking, Ya-in only smiled faintly, repeating what she used to do. Tears fell onto his face, contrary to his thought. The uneducated, unfortunate woman Youngshil. No, she was Ya-in's mother. She hugged him tightly, crying endlessly. He could only lean on her shoulder, glancing from within her warm embrace. The evening sun shone down on the mother and child sitting there. He stared intently at the rays before him without blinking. Today the sky was vast, and today the sunset was extraordinarily beautiful. As soon as she saw Ya-in, Youngshil rushed to embrace him. She screamed and cried like crazy. Of course. Let everything stay like this for a little longer. Until Ya-in can live independently. Let him try living as a human for once. At the same time, somewhere else, he tilted his head in confusion. A child? So what you are saying is, a child is what made you like this. He screamed as if he wanted the whole world to know. That's right. Kill that brat. He asked seriously. Then where is the child's corpse? Why was there only Detective On's body at the scene? Kami was choked and could not utter another word that matter. Well then, I am sure he was shot. From those words he judged. Then you were the one who shot Detective On, weren't you? Once again the man screamed loudly to justify himself. It wasn't me. Listen to me. Why aren't you saying anything? Huh? You saw it all with your own eyes. I shot that child to save you. He fell silent, head bowed, filled with thoughts. Kami waited in vain for salvation. He too was watching what he would say. That man suddenly spoke one sentence that drove him to the corner. Do you really trust him? Kami's words. Why are you blowing everything out of proportion? Kami nearly realized he had saved the wrong person. I'm tired already. Just end this conversation and arrest him. He resisted fiercely. Let go of me, detective. Why are you doing this? You saw everything yourself. That kid was the one who killed the detective. And the one I killed was that brat. No, a monster. He took out a cigarette and breathed a long puff of smoke. That man only quietly watched Kami's slow death. Why are you so noisy? He thought to himself about the two words, monster. That morning the sky was bright and beautiful. On the street people bustled back and forth. Mother and child walked hand in hand. After that day, afraid Ya-in might get lost again, Youngshil always held his hand. Ya-in felt this affection. It was so warm. He turned his eyes to the smile on her face. Ya-in did not hate what Youngshil did for him. That was why Ya-in thought this would gradually become more dangerous. In an instant winter arrived. The weather turned cold. From the school came a loud shouting voice. You people are the ones who beat my son. Are you gangsters or what? Did the teacher teach you to fight like that? The teacher struggled to calm her down. Well, ma'am, fighting is something that often happens with kids. Youngshil was not satisfied and yelled at him. What did you say? Is that what you should say to a mother? Then why don't you teach your kids to fight as well? And you all, if you dare lay another finger on my son, Ya-in, once more, I will crush your arm and break it. Youngshil fumed with rage, stressing 3 words, hear me clear. Ya-in looked at her and judged. Youngshil, only good to me. Another day among the women chatting together. Youngshil's son, that boy never talks and looks so lifeless, one old woman replied. Then surely the boy has gone through something. Right at that moment Youngshil came and picked up the whole basket. You old hags. What's wrong with you two? Her anger terrified the 2 old ladies. Oh my God. Youngshil stood there lecturing. Are you done talking yet? What did you say about my son? That the boy has gone through something. I'm sure you've lived long enough. It's about time you should go already. No one needs your opinion. Things like that kept happening. Our homeland. You must love your homeland. This place has done so much for us. Ya-in's father had been shot dead and he became an orphan. Youngshil's husband also died the same way. She eventually became a widow. She looked at the man before her and questioned, and now you want to take my place. I have been working here since my son was still in my womb. Who do you think you are? Ya-in still kept silent without a word. Youngshil grew angry, lay down on the ground and made a scene. If you force me to move somewhere else than my son, and I will starve to death. I'm not going anywhere. Instead, just kill me. If you don't intend to kill me, then get the hell out. Ya-in made the right judgment. Young-shil kept fighting against the world. Time went by like that. And finally he got used to the body and the way of living as a human. Golden sunlight reflected brightly over the fragrant flower field. Young-shil picked a flower and tucked it in her hair. She smiled and asked Ya-in, "How do I look? Isn't your mother beautiful?" He still stood there cold as always. Ya-in looked at her smile. "Whenever I think about leaving this place." Young-shil stood up and told him, "All right, let's go make food." That hand reached out to invite Ya-in. He also reached out to respond. Young-shil's hand was warm. Ya-in looked down at those wrinkles, though wrinkled. Then he followed her steps. Suddenly Ya-in spoke softly, making Young-shil dazed. "Why?" Ya-in raised a huge question. "Why fight?" She was a bit surprised by that question. He looked at his mother, waiting for her answer. Young-shil only smiled lightly and replied, "I do it so I can protect you." Ya-in gradually understood something. His lips pressed tight. At that moment a strong wind blew and knocked the flower from her hair. It was gone. Young-shil gently said to Ya-in, "The weather is getting colder. Let's go. When we get home, we'll cook meat to eat." The things he feared were about to happen. Ya-in told himself. He did not want to leave. He wanted to spend more time with Young-shil. The little flower suddenly fell onto the wet ground. Suddenly someone approached, picked it up. The stranger looked at the two figures of mother and son walking away. He stared at them as if locking on prey. The man held up the flower to admire it with interest and softly said, "Found you." His face suddenly darkened, growling two words, "Monster." The law of the world is compared to the fierce lion and the weak rabbit. The strong live, the weak die. The weak must become the food of the strong. This is the law applied to all species in this world. Any creatures that participate, that join the ranks, will immediately understand. However, there are deaths you can never understand. The emotionless eyes of Ya-in flickered with a brilliant light. The feathers of birds are used to make a fan, dying so that others can endure the heat. Or else they also become part of a warm coat, dying so that others can endure the cold. Even white mice are used, dying so that others can pursue the search for new things. The shiny skin of snakes becomes a wallet, dying so that others can keep money. Some deaths are for others to hang up as decoration. Other deaths are to create joy for others. Ya-in still watched the scene below attentively, truly unlucky. In the direction he gazed, the scene of the strong crushing the weak was unfolding. That is why, Ya-in quietly observed, not interfering but still following with his eyes. On a beautiful day, he waded through a small river to collect some snails to sell. Beside him a snail quietly rested on a rock. He reached out his hand and gently picked it up. Ya-in gently placed the snail into the basket and thought to himself, "I am already 12 years old." Finally, he had become familiar with human society. In recent years, this neighborhood had changed a lot. The roads became straighter and the buildings grew taller. Ya-in slowly crossed the simple wooden bridge. Then he suddenly stopped and looked to the right. Not far away a factory was releasing thick black smoke. The column of smoke from the chimney nearly covered the sky. Below, wastewater was being discharged continuously. Opposite, another factory had been built near the riverbank. White clouds peacefully drifted over the roof of Ya-in's house. He gently pushed the door to step inside the room. On Young-shil's body was a thin blanket. She was still sleeping soundly. Looking closely revealed her face drenched in sweat, and Young-shil had fallen ill. Ya-in's face showed no emotion as he simply stood there. Some time before, because of plenty of food, his cheeks were round. But Ya-in suddenly opened his mouth, letting them fall out. Young-shil frowned immediately. "Why did you spit it out? Was there a bone?" He silently stared at the meal, food that I instinctively hate. The cold fried fish on the plate before him was missing a piece. She deliberately added more fish for her son. "Do you know how good this is for you? Didn't I tell you how hard it was to catch?" She held up the piece of fish. "Best if you eat it. Open your mouth." Ya-in stubbornly resisted with a cold voice. "I don't want to eat it." Young-shil's face stiffened at his reaction. Then she put the fish into her own mouth. "If you won't eat, then fine. I'll eat it all. Surely everyone would crave this dish. So if you don't eat, I'll take care of it myself. Ya-in said nothing more. At that time he should have told Youngshil to stop eating it. Back to the present, he used some strength to wring the wet towel. Then he gently spread it and placed it on her forehead. Youngshil woke up suddenly. The illness made her eyes dark and weary. When she turned to the side, she saw Ya-in sitting there taking care of her. Joy was lit inside her. She smiled weakly. Yet Ya-in still remained silent like a machine. After a while, he calmly stood up. That action made Youngshil curious. Going to school? Ya-in quickly nodded as his reply. Hearing that she smiled even brighter. All right, enjoy studying. Though her words did not make him happy, Ya-in still paused to look at her a little longer. Time passed quickly. The neighborhood in the afternoon was bustling with people. Sellers and buyers happily exchanged. Here, the basket was full of round apples. Ya-in stood alone before the stall. They destroyed everything to satisfy themselves. And then that satisfaction led to the suffering of others. But why did Youngshil have to bear that pain? His eyelids lowered slightly from those thoughts. Then Ya-in put the red apple back into his basket. Suddenly another strange hand touched it. Looks tasty. The man continued to talk. How much? Ya-in lifted his face to look at him before replying. 10 won. He casually took a bite of the apple. Too expensive. Meanwhile, Ya-in thought, each person is a separate being. Human society created laws to maintain peace and to limit endless boundaries. Before this, he had broken a law no one dared to. He smirked into a smile, but delicious. Meanwhile, Ya-in kept thinking, killing. Those blue eyes glanced upward a little. He conveniently explained, I had planned to visit you before, but I wanted to watch you. I wanted to observe how monsters usually develop. His tone suddenly turned mysterious. Let me ask you a question. His comrades quickly gathered in full. Why are you pretending to be human? Ya-in did not care about the question. He kept absolute silence. Seeing that he did not hesitate further, Ya-in still did not speak. Everything afterward went very smoothly and easily. Arrest him. The people living nearby gathered into a crowd to watch. On Ya-in's thin arm now a handcuff was locked. After capturing Ya-in, they handed him over to a policeman. Ti-yun carefully observed him. You accept leaving with this thing on your hand. Even if they accused him, Ya-in remained emotionless. He was being investigated for espionage. In that silence only his voice was heard. If you are a spy. Ti-yun smiled. Then your mother must also be a spy. They have already sent someone to capture her. Just mentioning Youngshil immediately made Ya-in react. Ti-yun continued mumbling. It seems she is not very well. I don't know if she can handle this interrogation. Spy investigations are quite tough. After a long time dormant, Ya-in's power slowly awakened for the first time. He stopped rambling and quickly realized something. The policeman pointed at two men. Hey, you two, stay away from him. Stand there and you might die. At first they stared, not understanding the situation. What? But for Ya-in, energy gathered in his legs and the ground began to crack. Civilians around immediately staggered from the tremors. He simply stood there, but it was enough to shatter a large piece of ground. The men guarding him cried out in panic. What? Only Ti-yun secretly smiled slyly. Ya-in did not hesitate and darted forward at great speed. He escaped their encirclement and ran away right before their eyes. The crowd began to panic. That brat, what is happening? How can this be? Ti-yun immediately spoke. Don't you understand? His face had now turned cold and distant. He calmly watched Ya-in running away. He is a monster. At the same time, Ya-in ignored everything and just rushed ahead. Humans had called him a monster. He had been underestimated. The speed he reached was so fast the surroundings could not be seen. Ya-in's lips curved upward. I can become anything. And so, on that day, he became a disaster. Another day like any other came in a very peaceful way. Rays of sunlight from above shone down on every street and building in the city. The reason why humans are considered the center of the world despite their frail bodies is language. Ya-in quietly blended into the crowd thanks to language. Their complex communication allowed them to create different groups and develop civilization faster than any other species. People kept rushing past his sight, and Ja-in also understood their language. Even as he grew up, his face never changed. Ya-in never forgot. The only person he engraved deeply in his heart was Youngshil. Was this a blessing? Then the painful memories of their separation suddenly resurfaced. That was also the first time Ja-in shed tears, or was it a curse? On that day, the clear water rushed by swiftly. His feet splashed the stream as he stepped through. Ya-in ran fast across the place where he once leisurely collected snails. When he reached the right spot, he lowered himself to take momentum, preparing for a powerful leap. Then he jumped high, making his body easily cross a long distance. Thanks to that jump, Ya-in quickly passed over the trees and reached the familiar dirt road. He landed on both feet and easily maintained his balance. Next, Ya-in clenched his mouth to take a deep breath. Energy gathered in his calves, making them bulge. He focused on the force that allowed him to jump higher than ordinary people. Sweat was blown away by the wind, but those determined eyes stayed firm. As the afternoon approached, the orange color could easily be seen on the white clouds. Meanwhile, at the police station, silence covered everything. Kyung was smoking when someone spoke to him. "Are you all right?" He coldly replied, "What?" His colleague worried, "I saw you being kicked out by the boss." Kyung said nothing more, only quietly stared at the cigarette. The other sat down beside him. "I also think it is strange, the truth that a 12-year-old child is a spy." While lighting another cigarette, he shared his thoughts, and the truth that this child made many people gather together to capture him. "I heard he always behaved rudely with everything." His reply was emotionless. "I know." The colleague curiously asked, "Then why did you not stop him?" That question seemed to echo 1,000 times in his head. "Why?" Kyung suddenly remembered the moment Ya-in met his eyes and smiled. When he looked down, he saw his hands trembling unconsciously. Even a fleeting thought was enough to frighten Kyung into shaking, "Because I am afraid." The scene shifted to the simple house where Youngshil and Ya-in lived. Sung Min raised his eyebrows. "Here, right." Dong-su checked the information again. "Yes, this must be the place." They gathered quite a crowd in the empty lot. "Bring her out." The team understood immediately. "Got it." Before barging in, they carefully checked first. "Is she inside?" At that moment, the figure of Ya-in faintly appeared. "Is anyone there?" He landed on the ground behind them. The strange sound immediately drew all their attention. Dust around him had not even settled from his landing. Ya-in looked up with a face drenched in sweat. At first they were confused. "What is that? Where did he come from?" Sung Min spoke first. "Are you the child living here?" Ya-in nodded in answer. The man next to him whispered suspiciously, "Do you think Boss Kim made a mistake? Look at the boy." He muttered vaguely, "Well, we will know once we investigate. But for now, capture him." Dong-su nodded. "All right, understood." The tall figures quickly blocked Ya-in's sight. "Brat." They looked at him with frightening eyes. "Why not come along with us for a while?" His fingers began trembling as if about to strike them away. But at that moment the door opened. Ya-in stopped his intent and looked toward the sound. Youngshil appeared with her frail body. "What is going on?" All the men turned their eyes to her. Her gaze ignored every obstacle and quickly found him. Youngshil was so shocked she could only stammer a few words. "Ya-in." He immediately looked at her and muttered, "Surely the mother. She looks sick." Ya-in did not react outwardly but still paid attention to his words. Sung Min coldly ordered, "We only need to follow orders. Capture both of them." Dong-su instantly grabbed the boy's shoulder. "All right, come with us." Youngshil grew agitated. What do you think you are doing?" She staggered out into the yard. "Since when did you think you could take my son away? You better let him go." But they did not care about her words. When she looked at another man, each face showed clear contempt. Youngshil took a deep breath before shouting, "Everyone." Then she screamed loudly, "Everyone, they are trying to kidnap my son. Help!" Hee-jin frowned. "Old woman, why don't you think?" But she shoved his hand away. "Get your hand off me, you bastard." Youngshil desperately cried out, "Everyone." This appearance made them more suspicious. How can she still have strength to shout? She looks like she is dying. Sung Min tilted his head. Is she acting? Surely she is a spy. For Ya-in, he stared wide-eyed at her in surprise. Everyone, help. Just as she was about to scream again, a hand struck from behind. The man heartlessly slapped her face. Shut up. Shut your mouth, old woman. The slap left a red mark on Youngshil's cheek, looking very painful. Ya-in saw it clearly. Human language can almost describe every situation. Her body swayed and collapsed after the blow. Ya-in's mind turned cold. I truly feel a chill. The man even calmly watched her fall without helping. Suddenly Dong-su flinched. I can feel the rage boiling within me. Cracks spread under Ya-in's feet, and with that, I discarded it. Emotions overwhelmed everything, turning Ya-in into a mad beast, my reason. Moments later, his body already lay lifeless on the roof. Ya-in exhaled heavily while the murderous aura had not yet faded. Sung Min was now crushed on the ground, no longer breathing. His hand, stained with red blood, trembled slightly. Youngshil sat up with difficulty but seemed about to cry. Before her was the horrifying scene caused by her own son. She weakly called his name, Ya-in. He turned to look at her with ferocious eyes. Seeing him like that made her unable to hold back tears. As they only stared at each other, he had time to calm down. Ya-in was shaken in thought. Again, I did it again. But it was not over when a car screeched to a halt in the yard. A loud laugh tore through the tense air. Ti-yun appeared with a triumphant face, followed by some of his men. Ya-in slowly turned, panic clear on his face. He boasted to the others, "What did I tell you? I said he was a monster." His words agitated him more. Monster. Ti-yun kept laughing like a joke. Do not mess with him. You will die like the others. His small palm but containing terrifying power clenched tight. I just need to. As he hesitated, Youngshil suddenly dashed forward quickly. She ran right before him, startling him. Then she loudly confessed, I killed them, arrest me. Youngshil kept insisting, I killed them, I killed them. She risked herself to defend Ya-in, my son did nothing. That only made him more confused. It is all my fault. Ti-yun and the others froze. Youngshil, who did not even have energy to eat. He asked himself, why? Ya-in recalled the moment she took him to the flower field. Why fight? That gentle smile only for him. That figure engraved deeply in memory and mind. Then he used the same hand that caused Sin to clutch his chest. Youngshil still tried to make noise and draw the police's attention. Tears began streaming down Ya-in's cheeks. Only now did he realize, Mother did that to protect me. Did that? Ti-yun stared at Youngshil, who was shouting loudly, I killed them. My son did nothing wrong. She frantically took all the blame onto herself. It was me. Arrest me, arrest me. Youngshil insisted to the police. It was me who killed. The men still looked at her, shouting with annoyance. Ti-yun's face grew darker and darker. Ya-in stood behind Youngshil, still crying in agony. His tears continued streaming down his face. Ti-yun cocked the gun in his hand. He aimed straight ahead. Here. The gun pointed at Youngshil. Suddenly Ti-yun lowered the gun. He narrowed his eyes at the target. Suddenly Ya-in's eyes widened. Ti-yun muttered as if realizing something. There it is. Youngshil also froze when she saw him. A loud gunshot rang out. Birds flew away in panic. She could not believe the scene in front of her. The bullet struck Ya-in, leaving a large burn mark on his hand. Youngshil stammered, covering her mouth tightly. Ya-in. He still stood firmly in front of his mother with glowing green eyes. Ti-yun laughed with delight. I knew it. It's her. Shoot her. Youngshil looked at them in confusion, while Ya-in still stubbornly stood in front of his mother. One subordinate hesitated and asked Ti-yun, Boss, if they are not resisting, should we? He angrily shouted in his face, You stupid dogs. Don't you understand what's happening? Do you want to end up like them? Their faces turned pale as they looked at him. Ti-yun screamed furiously, This is an order. He shouted madly, Fire. Ya-in looked at the row of guns aimed at him and his mother. Youngshil also opened her eyes wide in fear. Ti-Yun shouted and fired. Kill them. Ya-in saw the bullets flying toward them. I can do this. He burned with determination. I must do it. Ya-in looked at his panicked mother behind him. Every life I have lived. His eyes suddenly shone with a strange green light. Must fight back against them. Countless bullets flew toward the two. Ya-in calmly raised his hand. With bare hands he blocked the bullet flying at Youngshil. She fell back in terror. Ya-in smiled with satisfaction. Perfect, I can do it. He encouraged himself. Hold on. His own body became like an invisible shield, blocking all the bullets aimed at Youngshil. She stared at Ya-in in amazement. The gunfire still poured down. Smoke rose from Ti-Yun's gun. He sweated as he looked at Ya-in. Youngshil also trembled as she watched him. Ya-in, filled with fighting spirit, still faced forward. Drops of blood dripped from his hand. His shoulder was struck by a bullet. Blood also appeared on his face. Ti-Yun could not believe his eyes. What are you all doing? He is still standing. Keep shooting. They raised their guns again, aiming at the mother and son. Ti-Yun ordered, shoot that brat. Kill him now if you don't want to die. Ya-in saw the bullets flying again. Yes, I have no other choice. He thought of his current situation and felt despair once more. Suddenly a hand stretched out in front of Ya-in. Youngshil rushed out to shield him. She hugged him tightly in her arms, leaving Ya-in shocked. Ti-Yun looked at the two in confusion. Ya-in realized the bullets were flying at Youngshil. No. He panicked, eyes wide open. She quickly stroked his head to comfort him. It's all right. Ya-in's eyes filled with tears. In just a moment, she was shot and fell backward. She slowly slipped from Ya-in's embrace and collapsed. He could not believe the scene before him. He stared blankly at his mother falling. Ya-in was stunned, watching Youngshil's death. She looked at him in her last breath. Mother. Ya-in leaned closer to her. Youngshil tried to raise her hand toward him. She tried to wipe away the tears on his cheek. She struggled to convey what she wanted to say to him. Youngshil recalled the happy moments with Ya-in. Both faced each other with tears of farewell. Her hand gradually slipped down. Youngshil lost all strength, lowering her hand. She slowly passed away before Ya-in's eyes. Flocks of birds flew across the twilight sky. They formed patterns as they flew ahead. Youngshil drifted into another world. She dreamily opened her eyes. She looked around in confusion. She began to wonder, what is this? Is this heaven? Suddenly Youngshil looked in one direction. She saw Ya-in trembling in a corner. She smiled gently at him. Youngshil looked at Ya-in wiping his tears. When you were born you didn't even cry. So why are you crying now? Ya-in wept and spoke. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry. I don't know what to do. Why do I have these powers? It's all my fault, mother. If I had known this would happen. Youngshil gently embraced Ya-in. She softly comforted him. It's all right. It's all right. The truth is, the fact that you were born as my son was already the greatest thing for me. Thank you. Ya-in buried his head in his mother's chest. Yeah, I will. See you again soon. Youngshil gazed intently at her son. She placed her hands on his shoulders. Ya-in. Promise me. She looked straight into his eyes. Ya-in also looked at his mother. She whispered her final words to him. Ya-in widened his eyes in surprise, returning to reality. He still sat silently before his mother's corpse. He remembered her last words. Ya-in, promise me. He looked at the men holding guns before him. Ya-in recalled his mother's dying words. No matter what happens to you, no matter what you must do. Ti-Yun still stood stunned at the sight before him. He saw Ya-in's entire body wrapped in a strange green light. By Ya-in's ear, his mother's voice still echoed. Please, keep living. Ti-Yun frowned and thought to himself, why does that man keep clinging to Ya-in? No matter how many reasons there are, the answer is already clear. He looked at Ya-in facing him and his men alone, proud. Humans are proud of their understanding of the world around them, and they fear what they cannot understand. That is why he wanted to end everything. Ya-in stared at his mother's body on the ground. Live. I cannot coexist with humans. Live. I will have to suffer or kill other people. He remembered the image of his mother's advice. At that time she looked at him with tears in her eyes and told him, only need to. 2 words engraved deep in his mind, just live. Ya-in remembered his mother's words. He closed his eyes and silently made up his mind, all right, I will live. Ti-yun and his men were surprised by his change. Suddenly, Ya-in turned his head and ran away, his mother's words echoing in his ears, no matter what happens to you, no matter what you must do. Youngshil's tears still lingered at the corner of her eyes. Ya-in pressed his lips tightly, following his mother's words, I will still live. He leapt onto the rooftops to avoid the pursuit of the police. He glanced back to see if they were chasing him. Ti-yun frowned in tension. He angrily shouted, what are you doing? He's running away. Get in the car. He is very weak now. This is our last chance to catch him. Hurry up. His screams still echoed on the road as Ya-in fled. Catch him. The sun gradually set. Dusk began to appear. The sound of cars rolled in, crushing the flower fields. Ya-in continued his escape. The car pierced through the vast flower field just to chase him. He recalled the moments when he and his mother had planted those flowers. Ya-in pressed his lips tightly, still determined to run forward. He took more steps. Suddenly he slowed down. Then Ya-in stopped completely. He faced the car still chasing him. His sudden stop surprised Ti-yun who was driving. He also stopped the car right in front of him. He and his men got out laughing with delight. What's this? Are you done running? Why don't you try running some more? Ya-in muttered, repeating his words, run. I can't do that there. Mother would be hurt if I did that. Sorry. Ti-yun still confused. What? Ya-in covered his face and confessed. The people I killed before, the people I killed just now, and all the people here too. Everyone must also have mothers. Out there surely there are people you love dearly, and people who love you. Just like me. Ti-yun laughed mockingly. He sneered at Ya-in. For a kid, you sure know how to talk. Ya-in ignored him and continued. I know well that I have done something very wrong, but... Ti-yun flinched as he listened. Ya-in's voice still rang out. You all did the same things. You kill people mercilessly. You destroy and wipe out everything. They all remained silent, watching Ya-in. He lifted his eyes and looked straight at them. I always questioned it. Why do I have to reincarnate again and again? Why do I have this power? Now, finally I understand. Ti-yun's eyes widened in horror. Ya-in clenched his fists with surging power. All of you useless creatures. I was born to drive your kind to extinction. Ti-yun and his men clenched their teeth, trembling as they looked at him. Suddenly he looked up. Ya-in flew straight into the sky before the astonished eyes of the robbers. The 6 of them stared at him floating without blinking. Ya-in remained in the air. He shot down toward them like an arrow. Ti-yun screamed in terror. Ya-in dove down, making the surroundings seem to explode. Flowers scattered in the air. The car flipped over, spewing smoke. The robbers were crushed to death by rocks. Ya-in coldly stared at their corpses. His eyes grew increasingly indifferent as he looked at them. Ti-yun weakly muttered, I knew it. I was right. You need to die. A monster like you must not exist in our world. Ya-in bluntly replied, yeah. He stepped closer to him. He stared at Ti-yun. You're right. You should have killed me. Ti-yun, pinned under a rock, also looked at him. Ya-in slowly bent down, but you failed. He slowly reached out his hand to attack. He looked at him with a dark gaze, and, in return, all humans in this world, every one of you, will suffer my wrath. His attack made Ti-yun scream miserably. Blood splattered everywhere from his body. Night gradually fell. Ya-in alone carried his mother's body, walking quietly down the road. The moonlight seemed to shine brighter on the scenery around him. Ya-in carried Youngshil and kept walking endlessly. Maybe he was already tired. He began to hear Youngshil's voice, something he could not hear. He began to recall the good memories with his mother, when she caressed him, held him in her arms, her satisfied smile, and when Youngshil held his hand tightly. The image of his gentle mother always existed in Ja-in's mind, the words he had heard dozens of times. Finally Ya-in responded. He whispered in the dark night, "Me too." Dark night. Ya-in kept walking in the dark night. He silently remembered the years I was with my mother. It felt like they passed in the blink of an eye compared to the millions of years I had lived. That fleeting time was everything to me. I felt the endless love I had never had before. I felt endless joy. But mother is no longer here. He gradually walked slower. Then he completely stopped. Ya-in thought to himself, mother died because of me. No life or death ever hurt me like this. His eyes grew increasingly sorrowful. He remembered the image of Youngshil, life. Ya-in silently could not utter a word. He still seemed to be standing frozen in that field. He continued walking with small steps. Ya-in lifted his head and looked forward. All right, mother. In another place, among frozen mountains in the icy space, Jae-hoon held his hunting gun tightly and looked ahead. He was aiming at a large bird on a tree branch. He pointed the gun straight at it and aimed. The bird seemed to sense his presence and turned to look. It was immediately killed by Jae-hoon with a single shot. He laughed with delight. Bullseye. Suddenly someone appeared, surprising him. He was bewildered to see Ya-in, dazed, a child. Jae-hoon immediately approached to get acquainted with him. Kid, how did you get here? These hunting grounds are very dangerous. Ya-in stayed silent without answering. He suddenly realized, this is the first time you've seen a pheasant, right? Big, isn't it? It's been a long time since I saw one this big. The boy questioned Jae-hoon, are you proud of that? He slowly clenched his fists as streams of power spread through his body. Ya-in looked at him with eyes full of danger. Jae-hoon was still confused looking at him. He asked Ya-in, where are your parents? The boy suddenly grew gloomy and said nothing. Ya-in quickly answered, they are dead. Jae-hoon seemed to sympathize, looking sadly at him. He stepped closer to Ja-in. He wrapped a scarf around the boy's neck. Winter is coming. Are you cold? Why are you wearing such short clothes? The boy looked up at Jae-hoon blankly. He turned his back and walked away. For now come to my place. Ya-in silently observed him. The blue sky covered the vast mountains. Su-jae gently looked outside the door, hearing a loud call. Mom, I'm home. Jae-hoon waved at her. Why are you standing out in the cold? I told you to wait inside. First let the kid take a bath before eating. Ugh, that smell. Delicious dishes were set on the table. Jae-hoon rested his hand on his knee and said, all right, today we have tender pheasant meat. Are you hungry? Eat up. Suddenly strange noises drew Ya-in's attention. Jae-hoon also listened. The echo is loud, isn't it? That mountain over there is under construction. What do they call it? Risado. Ya-in remained silent but glanced toward the source of the sound. He curiously asked the boy, so what wind brought you all the way up to these mountains? Ya-in picked up his chopsticks and replied, I just walked here. Jae-hoon listened calmly while eating. He picked up some rice. Anyway, there is nothing much up here. It's not the best place for a child to live. When there's time, let's go to the village. I will ask the village chief to find someone who can take care of you. You still need to go to school. Ya-in put food into his mouth, chewing with appetite. Seeing that, he happily wanted to pat the boy's head. The boy looked at his action blankly. Jae-hoon smiled broadly, and when you're at school, remember to learn to speak politely to the elderly. Understand, kid? Ya-in looked at him full of childlike curiosity. Night covered the mountains. The moonlight shone on Jae-hoon's house. Family photos were placed on the table, moments of reunion, trips, the photo of his father, and pictures of him with his mother. Jae-hoon was still sleeping, drooling. Su-jae also peacefully sank into dreams. Their snores filled the house. Only Ya-in still lay awake, unable to sleep. His eyes wide open staring at the ceiling. His gaze filled with helplessness, unable to put into words. Many large clouds covered the sunlight. The clearest thing left was the white snow everywhere. Jae-hoon and Su-jae widened their eyes, watching something mysterious in front of them. Ya-in, in new clothes, stood in the yard. It seemed a bit long for you, right? He carefully bent down. We can fold it up like this. The boy obediently lowered his head under Jai Hoon's care. After adjusting his pants, he stood proudly. There, perfect, let's go. Before leaving, he did not forget to tell Sujai, "Mother, I will be back soon." She raised her weak hand to wave at them. Ya-in kept staring at her without showing any other emotion. The two of them went into the forest. Bird calls echoed faintly from afar. Around the path there were only rocks, trees, and snow repeating again and again. For Ya-in, from beginning to end, he just quietly walked beside Jai Hoon. Then he suddenly spoke. "Your mother, she does not say much." He happily patted the boy's small head. "Are you serious? So that means you know how to speak with the elderly, right?" This touch made the boy clearly show dislike. But Jai Hoon still smiled happily at that. Then he shared. "She cannot speak. She cannot hear well either." The boy asked confused, "If she cannot hear, why do you keep talking to her?" He gave a sad smile. "Even if she cannot hear, she can still understand." Jai Hoon sincerely confided to him, "As long as she understands what I want to say, just that alone is enough." After hearing, the boy stayed silent, unclear if he understood those emotional words. After walking further, dark clouds covered the sky and poured down cold rain. He looked up surprised. "Oh no, it's raining." Jai Hoon quickly pulled the boy close. "It's just drizzle. It will stop soon. Be careful not to catch a cold." He led Ya into a cave. "Let's shelter from the rain here until it stops." They entered the cave, not knowing above them was a dangerous construction site. Some tree trunks had been cut but not cleared, still piled up high. Why is it raining so heavily in winter? The rain did not stop but kept pouring onto the roots. When water soaked into the ground, the disaster began. Rocks and earth fell straight down, ready to sweep everything away. Thunderous noise erupted, trees, rainwater, and countless debris piling together. In that dangerous moment, Jai Hoon pushed Ya-in out of the cave in time. He himself was trapped inside and could only breathe faintly. Seeing the boy confused, he forced himself to speak. "Are you all right?" Ya-in was drenched, his face full of horror and panic. He rushed to Jai Hoon while trees around were uprooted. Ya-in desperately dug the earth around him, but it was useless. He breathed with difficulty. "What should I do?" The boy tried to rescue while reassuring him. "Wait, I will help you get out." But Jai Hoon's eyes were slowly darkening. "Mother, my mother." That weak cry froze the boy. "Mother." Finally he fell silent, no longer moving. "No." Ya-in's lips trembled, wanting to say something, but he could not. Only dry branches and cold rain remained. He stood frozen in front of the body trapped in the rubble. Time passed. The rain around him grew louder. Ya-in bit his lip tightly and ignored everything happening. He lifted his face upward. "The mountain over there is under construction." Raindrops fell onto his pale skin. "What do they call it?" Everything sank into gloom, blended with a dark sky and cold rain. "Risotto." Time passed, but the rain did not lessen. Ya-in carried Jai Hoon on his back, step by step returning to their house. The large body weighed on the boy's small figure. On the way back, Ya-in showed no other expression. Suddenly something in front made him lift his head, but it was not what he wanted, so he disappointedly lowered his gaze. When he returned, Sujai was waiting outside in the rain. Her eyes were shocked at the cruel truth. Jai Hoon with a wound on his forehead unhealed, now completely at rest. The shock made the umbrella in her hand fall to the ground. Ya-in only saw an unopened umbrella lying in the rain. After countless events, the rain finally stopped, leaving some branches not yet dry. The sky returned to peaceful blue, raindrops sparkling on the eaves. Ya-in sat outside to watch that rare, beautiful moment. His emerald eyes followed the falling drops. Light shimmered for a moment. Then he suddenly closed his eyelids. The cruel scenes he once caused returned. Then the moment when he dived from the sky and destroyed the evil people who ruined his happiness. Ya-in thought, "To be honest, I vented my anger on them." The moment facing Ti-yun was still clear in memory. All humans in this world, not one will be left behind. Ya-in sat curled in the corner. "I am still thinking about my decision." Then he held his small hands in front of him. I hesitate. No matter how I look, I only see childish fingers. I do not know what is right or wrong. That thought sank his mind into unconscious gloom. Before that, young Shil had once panicked holding a test paper with a bad grade. She frowned and said, "What is this? You are really like your mother, aren't you?" He honestly admitted, "I did not do it because I did not know how." Young Shil scolded, "Even if you do not know, you must try. If you do not try, you will not learn anything." But he still shook his head. "If I do not know the answer, why try?" She did not force any more, just silently looked at him as if pondering. Returning to reality, Ya-in alone looked at the vast sky. His face could not be seen clearly, but sadness radiated around. In contrast, the human construction project was completed. The opening ceremony began when someone cut the ribbon. Then came loud applause from attendees. The project owner stood on stage waving. He continuously received handshakes and praise. But his face suddenly changed when he saw it. The project owner asked, "Who is that over there?" The person beside him answered, surprised, "What?" From this side, Ya-in calmly walked straight toward them, a child. This incident annoyed him. Is there no security at the gate? On such an important day, how could they let someone in so easily? His staff quickly reacted. "I will drive him out immediately." Hearing that he was temporarily satisfied but sighed. The young man stood blocking in front of the boy. "Kid, you are not allowed here." Before he could finish speaking, he suddenly froze. "Go." A trail of blood followed Ya-in's steps from the bodies he had dealt with. The boy cared for nothing but his own thoughts. "If I do not know, then just try." At that time young Shil had advised, "Even if you get 20 points or even 0, who cares?" She smiled and encouraged him. Making mistakes is not really wrong. Thanks to that encouragement, now he appeared here. The young man fell to the ground in fear. His scream stuck in his throat. Drops of blood dripped from Ja-in's hand. "If you are truly at your limit, then just do what you think is right." Then Ja-in slowly lifted his head, his lips pressed tighter. He bluntly said to the young man, "I will not hesitate anymore." Half of Ya-in's face darkened. "All of you will die by my hands," he declared with determined eyes. "The reason is, because I want to." The small figure of Ya-in stood looking toward the majestic mountains. His body was lonely beneath the sky, and the hidden thoughts in his heart gradually revealed, unceasingly progressing, unceasingly growing. Extinction was not easy at all, but I can do it. Ya-in stood there trying to feel the beauty of this cruel world. His eyes were soulless, no longer carrying the innocence of his age. Drops of blood kept falling from his small hand. Behind the place where Ya-in stood were countless corpses that had left the world. The sunset gradually fell upon the cliffs, creating a poetic scene. He was standing looking at a high mound and staring at the portrait of Jai-hun. Ya-in wondered, was it too shocking because her son died? She passed away in her sleep a few days after that. He glanced at his grandmother Su-jai beside him. Ya-in's eyes carried sorrow, some despair, and also curiosity. He carried that expressionless face when he returned to the house. Ya-in sat on the steps in front of the door thinking, "Let's see. First, I have to determine what power I have." Raising his hand, he observed carefully, carrying a bit of expectation. That small hand carried something new. Ya-in guessed, "Now I can use the power of every species. I can become anything." In his blue eyes lay many questions. Ya-in recalled the scene when he was injured and reasoned. "The problem is, if I do not actively think, I will return to being just an ordinary human." He sat there for a long time, watching the evening sunset and thinking about the future. Ya-in decided, "I cannot keep doing everything like this." From behind his back looked determined, still sitting motionless as if trying hard to find a direction at the crossroads of the future. Time passed swiftly. 1 year had gone by, on a beautiful day where a train rushed along the tracks. Inside, the conductor was focusing on his job. Suddenly his eyes were startled looking outside. Before him, Ya-in was standing firmly in the middle of the tracks. His eyes still carried no emotion, but the corner of his mouth showed confidence. The conductor panicked, his brows furrowed tightly. When the train approached Ya-in, he moved swiftly like a cheetah. That small body was thrown far away, head striking the ground. The conductor clenched his teeth anxiously, opened the door, and stepped out to check. Ya-in's hand with calloused marks slowly touched the hard ground. The conductor trembled in fear, sweat soaking his face. He looked around bewildered but did not see any trace of the boy, as if what just happened was an illusion. Far away, Ya-in's body moved deeper into the forest. His mind assessed the toughness of a clam shell. Ya-in firmly judged, I have been able to maintain that state in my subconscious. Above, the sky was still clear with white clouds. Another year passed. On his head a white cat yawned lazily. Around Ya-in were now many friends from different species. He looked up at the small cat. Now Ya-in had a new skill. I have learned to communicate with all creatures, not through words. The brown bear pressed against him seeking sympathy. Ya-in guessed. If I had to describe it, I would call it telepathy. His hand slowly reached out with slender joints. Ya-in placed his hand on the bear's head. It was easier than I thought. A sixth sense developed, although basic knowledge of animals helped. A faint smile appeared on his lips, but mostly thanks to the instinct of this body. Ya-in looked up at the flying creatures. He felt warm inside. Most creatures on Earth seemed to like humans. Ya-in's eyes unconsciously looked upward. He calculated, this is quite controversial. Pieces of clear sky mixed with white clouds created a peaceful space. 5 years had passed. Ya-in's legs had grown longer. He had become a teenager. His body matured physically. Ya-in decided, I think it will be useful to maintain this physical state. His eyes were resolute, so I combined it with the ability of the turtle. 10 years passed. Factories spread toxic waste into the environment. Household waste materials flooded the rivers. Elsewhere, trees were still green, bringing fresh air. Ya-in sat there pondering. My communication skill is not limited to creatures. He placed his hand on the ground, creating strange energy. Ya-in could sense earth, water, and even trees. He closed his eyes, slowly meditating. No, there is life in those things. Outside the vast universe, the image of the planet appeared with the sun's rays. This earth. Ya-in closed his eyes tightly. I can feel it. After a while he opened his eyes and concluded. It is in torment. Ya-in's hand slowly rose away from the ground he had just explored. His lonely figure stood there looking toward the city where houses were built. It was dying slowly. 30 years. Ya-in's hand clenched. I have the ability to train my skills. His eyes opened indifferently, and what I can do is limitless. Ya-in stood there watching the mountain he had just split in two. His hand carried great energy that spread a powerful aura. Furthermore, I discovered I can combine skills together. Ya-in clenched both fists. His eyes sparkled. That means? Ya-in looked toward the pollution happening. I am ready. His body emitted murderous aura to the sky. Should I do it? Not now. In Ya-in's pupils there was hesitation and doubt. The tall buildings appeared and disappeared behind the long, swaying trees. Ya-in clenched his hands tightly together. His eyes dangerous. Simple as that. His feet created 2 large flames, transmitting heat down into the ground and pressing force upon it. The ground beneath Ya-in began to crack from the heat. Repeating like that several times could cause an earthquake. Each fiery pulse was transmitted deep into the earth. A terrifying earthquake split the earth in two. With my current power, I can create an earthquake spreading to 6 continents across the entire earth with the same magnitude. An earthquake that would split those 6 continents into small fragments, with more than half of them struck by ocean waves. No one would be able to survive such a catastrophic tragedy. Ya-in imagined himself standing upon piles of human bones, the extinction of humankind. Smoke began to rise, his eyes soulless. That is what will happen. Ya-in lifted his eyes to the flock of birds above, simple as that. But humans were not the only beings who would sacrifice. His eyes sank. Even so, I will still do it. Ya-in pressed his hands together, struggling inside. I will do it, but I hesitate so much. The heat from his feet began to spread. Ya-in thought, I have been lonely for many decades. I should see how humans have developed by now. Why must I do this? I have been observing them since they first began. Yaden's eyes carried many hidden burdens. He remembered the gentle figure of Yongshul and the honest man Jai Hoon who passed away too early. His lips tightened. Well then, because I can do whatever I want. Yain's body gradually loosened. His arms gently dropped to his sides. His mind was calm, the heat from his feet released from the ground. Yain's figure drifted lightly in the wind with hesitation. There is no need to rush. The ship moved gently upon the calm blue water. Waves softly touched the golden sand. The waste increased day by day and was thrown everywhere, he thought, no matter where I go. Walking through forests with towering ancient trees. Beneath the ground was a wooden bridge crossed by many people. Trash began to appear in the forest. Yain was dissatisfied. Even when I try my best, I still cannot find a place where humans have never set foot. His rough feet moved along the solid roads. Yain walked on the wide road at night. He reasoned, let's take this road as an example. Yain's back was gloomy in the night, creating a strange feeling. His eyes blazed. Streams of strange blue energy appeared around his body. Yain stood still on the road waiting for a car moving toward him. The driver, terrified, steered desperately to avoid. Suddenly on the cliff a huge rock was falling. Its position was aimed directly at the white car he was waiting for. Yain stood tall watching as if observing an enemy falling into danger. He recalled memories. Just recently, this had once been a forest full of the faint fragrance of acacia flowers. Yain stood there. His expression grew frightening, sinking into the night. Yes. His hand slowly clenched into a fist. I am too tired already. Yain's eyes grew determined. Then now I will just deal with all of them. The car's headlights shone on him, attracting his attention. Yain turned to look at the car, losing control, rushing toward him. In his eyes there was disgust, too noisy. The headlights grew brighter, making Yain hate more. Those noisy sounds do not belong to this world. Screams echoed from inside the car. Suddenly his whole body stiffened in shock. Yain remembered the familiar flowers of the past and his mother's voice. How do you feel? His eyes lit up as if seeing the light of his life. Yongshil appeared in Yain's mind with a sweet smile, asking, how do you feel? He found that figure in Lisu, the woman sweating in terror. Yain's lips trembled as if to speak a familiar sound. Now the falling rock drew closer to the car roof. He leapt swiftly, leaving a small cloud of dust behind. Yain rushed like a cheetah, afraid that being late for a moment would bring regret. His hand reached out in midair as if trying to grasp a ray of hope. Yain punched hard, shattering the rock into fragments. The car was safe. He calmly landed on the roof. The woman inside, anxious, gripped the steering wheel tightly, her eyes closed. Lisu clenched her teeth and opened one eye to see. Before her was Yain's upside-down face, frighteningly strange, his face terrifying, bringing a sense of horror. She was startled by the sight and screamed loudly. At the same time, another rock was falling freely from the sky. Its speed grew faster, leaving the safe position. The rock aimed straight at Yain's body on the car roof. Quickly Lisu looked in horror as it crashed down on him. Yain's eyes turned blank, gradually sinking into unconsciousness, painful. The wheels quickly reversed back. His body was thrown far away from the car. Yain wondered, why? I should have used my power immediately. At the same time, she hurriedly opened the door and stepped out. His eyes wide open looked at the sky, muttering, ah, right. Yain looked at Lisu running toward him and concluded, they made me lose all awareness of myself. She ran to him with worry and fear. Yain's vision narrowed, only hearing Lisu's calls. They are really alike. His pupils grew distorted, showing fatigue and disappointment. His eyes slowly closed, leaving only consciousness with the screams. Finally his eyes shut tightly with thought. Again, it has been a long time since I felt this. A feeling I have experienced thousands of times. Disappearance. Disappearance. It has been so long. Yain's eyes opened wide in surprise. He saw the two of them staring at him. He was lying in a hospital bed, with bandages on his head. Suddenly Yain sat up, screaming loudly. The nurse advised, you should not move so violently. Since you just had surgery, so sometimes it will still hurt a lot. He touched his head confused. Surgery? She replied. Although we did not receive consent from your guardians, because we could not find your relatives, the nurse decided to perform surgery right away. Luckily, it went smoothly. What is your name? After hearing the question, Ya-in blankly asked back. Name? The nurse answered. That is right. We have no information about you. Can you tell me your name? He fell silent as if trying to remember something. Seeing that, both women fell silent in surprise. Ya-in looked up at the ceiling. Strange, why can't I remember? Lisu realized. Ancient tongue. The nurse asked, You do not remember? Suddenly in his head a voice kept urging, and the blurred image of a gentle smile of a somewhat familiar woman. Memories rushed back. Ya-in let out a moan. I remember now. He firmly introduced. My name is Li Ya-in. The nurse reported to the doctor. Li Ya-in, age unknown, current address unknown. The doctor asked, No information about him and amnesia too? She replied, Yes, that is correct. The doctor turned to Lisu and said, This is very unfortunate. On her face was clear dissatisfaction upon hearing this. 3 months later, inside the police station a voice resounded. We believe he is about 24 or 25 years old. Yes, I have heard that. Even if we expand the records to people up to 40 years old, there is still no match. His fingerprints have not been registered. We really have no way of knowing who he is. The police responded to the prosecutor. I have also investigated this. In the nearby CCTV there is nothing related to him at all. Lisu held her head in exhaustion. Then staying here is useless. In such situations, what am I supposed to do? He replied, We have never encountered such a case, truly complicated. He does not remember anything except his name, and even that might not be his real name. The doctor said he might have complete amnesia, and it is also possible that he is an illegal immigrant. She probed, Then what do we do now? He helplessly said, If he had a guardian it would be easier. Lisu had some planned thoughts. A guardian. She sat quietly for a moment with important considerations. Lisu's eyes lit up, regaining vitality, asking, A guardian? Inside the tall and luxurious building where the matter was being resolved, which she had sought out, the staff called, Guardian of Li Ya-in. He turned his head to the side as if silently reminding. Ya-in asked curiously, Did she not call you? Lisu irritably replied, Yes. The staff requested, Do you have the hospital discharge papers? She responded, Yes. Please fill this in. Lisu received it with a frown and filled in the information. She fell into silence, showing hesitation in her actions. Lisu turned her head back to look at him sitting behind waiting. Ya-in's face showed innocence with a hint of pitifulness. She sighed in frustration, helpless inside not knowing what to do. The sunset fell over the city. The two of them left, one in front and one behind. Both lifted their heads to the sky, eyes gazing at the beautiful sunset. Ya-in spoke, Is something wrong? You don't look well. Lisu turned her head, giving him a sharp look. She spoke, Let me remind you, this is not my fault. It was a landslide. I do not need to bear responsibility or owe you anything for what happened. He was puzzled. What are you saying? You keep repeating the same thing. Hearing that, Lisu fell into contemplation. The atmosphere seemed frozen. She slowly stepped forward to face him directly. Lisu said harshly, Moreover, clearly you are about 24 or 25 years old. Because the younger you are the more beneficial it is. So I registered your age as 24. By the way, I am 34 years old, much older, right? She spoke sharply. Ya-in innocently said, I thought the younger the better. You are old now, so what are you going to do? Hearing that her temper flared, anger surged like a tsunami. This bastard. Lisu waved her hand. Anyway, I am older, so I will be straightforward with you. He agreed and listened. Do whatever you want. Her voice full of fury. Did I not tell you that I am older? Do you have no manners? Do you want me to teach you? Ya-in's face turned blank, not answering, making the atmosphere awkward. Lisu helplessly said, Forget it, let's go. He asked, Go where? She replied, While I look for you a place to work, you can stay in the dormitory where I live and try to regain your memory. Once you remember, you can leave. Suddenly Lisu's eyes were startled by Ya-in's action. He suddenly grabbed her hand without warning. Lisu furiously shook his hand off. What the hell? Didn't I tell you already? Don't hold others' hands. Ya-in's innocent eyes filled with sadness argued. Why not? She furrowed her brows in frustration, showing inner feelings. After a while, Lisu sighed helplessly, putting her hand to her head. She waved her hand explaining, no means no. If you want, at least you must ask for the other person's permission first. If they agree, then do it. He quickly spoke. Can I hold your hand? Lisu, exasperated, put her hands on her hips, unbelieving. Really? Ask more politely. She turned to look at Ya-in. He sincerely said, Can I hold your hand, please? Hearing that, she did not answer, only used her hand to hold his hand. His eyes lit up, staring at their hands. Lisu pulled his hand and led him forward. Let's go. Suddenly, a memory flashed across his mind. An image of his childhood with his mother. Because of that memory, Ya-in could not hold back his tears, they fell down. She noticed something unusual, turned back to observe. Lisu's eyes showed surprise and awkwardness. In front of her, he lowered his eyes, tears streaming down his face. Lisu was startled. She cared. Why are you crying? Hearing her voice, Ya-in unconsciously lifted his face. He raised his hand, wiping away the tears, wondering, why am I crying? They stood there talking. On the other side was a yellow flower bed. The flowers stretched out, receiving the last sunlight of the day. Ya-in's voice faintly resounded. I do not know either. Outside a certain cafe, the sky seemed to be darkening. Inside, voices echoed. So that's what you mean. Hearing that, Ya-in immediately glanced sideways to eavesdrop on what was happening. Seoui confessed and turned to ask, Are you currently living with this guy? Lisu calmly replied, That's right, for now. She turned to him with a look full of displeasure. He naively asked, What are you looking at? At that moment, Seoui's mind was filled with countless questions. She was somewhat furious, but kept silent. The three of them sat together, yet each had their own concerns. Seoui still couldn't suppress her anger. Definitely not. Just as she finished speaking, a yellow dog walked up, its tongue sticking out as if very thirsty. Lisu said, with a tone of not understanding what was happening, What's the matter? Anyway, he's staying at my place. From inside, Ya-in clearly heard the conversation between the two. Seoui exclaimed, It's strange. She answered, How is it strange? He's lost his memory. We can't even trace his identity. Even the dialect he speaks is very odd. Lisu was surprised. A dialect? Seoui frowned and said, My mother is from Kyungsang, so I can say for sure he's not familiar with using that dialect. It sounds different, like he's trying to imitate it. Lisu, looking unconcerned, asked, Why would he imitate that dialect? Seoui grew increasingly harsh. I don't know. Anyway, no, forget everything else. Let's look at this logically. He's a man, and you don't even know him, yet you let him into your house like that. Are you crazy? Lisu pondered and recalled what had happened. She wasn't entirely wrong. Seeing that scene back then, he had shed tears like rain. Slowly, Lisu turned her shining eyes toward Ya-in. Ya-in happened to turn and met the gazes of the two staring at him. He smiled warmly, as if the entire world had wronged him. Seoui hurriedly covered her mouth. Her face flushed red, clearly flustered. Lisu gently said, Because I feel like I have some responsibility for this. Besides, my intuition is sharp, and you know that. Hearing that, Seoui turned and said, Intuition? Then what do you feel now? She touched her hair and confessed, He's harmless. Hearing that, Seoui had to think for a while, her gaze somewhat doubtful. The two fell silent, as if there was nothing left to say between them. Ya-in's innocent eyes made it hard not to find him endearing. He truly seemed harmless. Seoui sighed in frustration at Lisu's explanation. She scratched her head irritably. Anyway, I can't persuade you, so do whatever you want. The dog quickly fell asleep. On the rooftop of the cafe, it was quite empty. Lisu said, There's a small empty room on the rooftop of this cafe. You can stay there. Ya-in naively asked, Can't I stay with you? She crossed her arms and said, "Rules? You sound like a whiny child. But I want to stay with you." Lisu tilted her chin proudly. "But I don't want that." His face showed a sorrowful expression. She added, "Don't make trouble anymore. For now, they'll give you a job and pay you a salary until you recover your memory." Hearing that, Ya-in grew even sadder, lowering his head to the ground. Seeing this, she comforted him. "I'll visit often." He still stayed silent, his eyes heavy with sorrow. Lisu stood up, pulled out her chair, and said to Coui, "Then please take care of him." Coui was surprised. "You're leaving right away? We don't have any customers anyway. Why not stay a little longer?" Lisu replied, "I have to go home before returning to the base. I still need to take care of some chores." Hearing the familiar word, Ya-in's eyes lit up. "A base?" She heard him and, seeing his curiosity, cheerfully explained, "She works there? She works at quite a good place, called the Environmental Industry Base." Hearing that, a thought flashed in his mind. "I also want to work there." Suddenly, the dog barked. Lisu spread her arms and ran toward it, cheerfully saying, "Let's go." She turned to play with the dog, ignoring the two standing there. Before she could touch the dog, it happily ran off. It turned out it had run to wrap itself around Ya-in's legs. Coui smiled and exclaimed, "Oh, look at that." She was puzzled and muttered, "Strange, Royce never welcomes anyone except me." He looked down, his gaze full of thoughts. She will take the dog with her? At that moment, Royce happily circled him, with eyes wanting his touch. Ya-in gently bent down and smiled at the dog. "Good." He patted its head. "Really?" Suddenly, Ya-in seemed to recall some memory about this dog. His head spun, his eyes went blank. His eyes widened as if seeing something. He quickly covered his mouth, but his eyes still shone brightly, leaving everyone bewildered. Then he calmed down and looked across the way. A truck rushed past. The truck slowly rolled by them. Seeing this, Royce barked furiously. Lisu hurried to stop him. "Royce, stop. Calm down." "What's the matter?" Ya-in exclaimed, "That truck." It was a truck from the base, the brand name clearly written on it. She asked curiously, "So what about that truck?" Royce grew furious. "A dog's sense of smell is 1,000 times stronger than humans." Ya-in's eyes showed concern. Ya-in, who had borrowed the strength of a dog, suddenly discovered something. Inside the truck was something shady. A strange creature that even Ya-in did not recognize. It was a being born from the bottomless greed of humans. Even Ya-in, who had lost his memory, could feel it. The creature inside the truck was radiating an emotion so fierce it was overwhelming. The truck passed them, but everything dark inside was sensed by him. That emotion was hatred toward humanity. The sky began to darken, the night fell, the voices of people still chattered in his ears. "Hydra, huh? Yes, it belongs to the phylum Cnidaria. Just see it as a cancer tumor." Mono reflected on the screen and exclaimed, "This Hydra can regenerate its entire body, even from just 1/200th. He pressed the button to switch the image and continued, "We are studying its healing system to research ways to treat cancer. As you can see, we cut off one of its tentacles, and a few days later, it healed back as before. Many studies are in the process of creating a protein that can stop this regeneration. If we can do that, then we can also stop cancer cells." Below, everyone listened and found it reasonable. One of them exclaimed, "Oh, interesting." Mono took the chance to continue. "Recently, one of the maritime companies linked to the Ministry of Environmental Industry discovered a new strain of Hydra and now possesses it. We are currently studying the differences between these two types of Hydra. Everyone can observe the images. We call it steer. If you don't mind, let me tell you a boring story. The reason the Earth still exists is thanks to balance. From plankton to humans. All creatures on Earth have their own instincts. A baby suckles milk from its mother's breast. A chick hatches from an egg. These actions were never taught. They are simply survival instincts. All life on Earth is bound by life and death, and that natural cycle is what maintains balance on Earth. For example, the smallest creatures on this planet, plankton. The stars in the night sky shine among the darkness. As the basic element in many food chains, they play an important role in cloud formation. Seawater evaporates and condenses into droplets thanks to plankton. Those countless droplets form clouds. Those clouds reflect sunlight and reduce the average temperature of the Earth. The ocean produces half of the oxygen on Earth and determines the weather, something that changes the fate of many creatures. The deep ocean is essential for life on Earth. Organisms are living in wastes, slowly decomposing, caused by humans. In a certain cafe, Ya-in with a sleep-deprived face asked, "Where are you going?" Lisu just managed to fix her hair and replied, "Church." He turned and asked Coui, "Want to come?" She hurriedly said, "What is with your attitude? And besides, we are working. Where are you going?" Ya-in firmly replied, "There are no customers." Coui frowned, "If there are no customers, then I will kick you out. Do you want to experience sleeping on the street? And besides, I am a Buddhist." Hearing that he was a little surprised, Buddhist, Lisu whispered, "I wonder, before he lost his memory, did he follow any religion? Do you remember?" Ya-in naively, "Religion, huh?" Coui asked, "Do you believe in God or anything?" He said, "I don't know." She confessed, "Are you an atheist?" Ya-in asked, "What is that?" Lisu explained, "People who think God does not exist." He listened carefully, then slowly spoke, "No, I am sure there is." Both Coui and Lisu in unison, "You are sure?" Ya-in began to voice his thoughts. "Everything is too perfect, so surely there is God." The other two fell silent, focusing on his words. Ya-in pondered for a moment, his eyes slightly sad, and said, "Even if he lost thousands of years of memory on Earth, he was still certain of one thing. The world around us is perfect. They will not allow this perfect balance to be destroyed." The scene showed people working hard to fight storms. They resisted tornadoes, earthquakes, hail, and other natural disasters. Everything happened in sequence. Is that not enough? A creature was created to maintain that balance. Those creatures just keep multiplying. A creature born with the sole purpose of survival. Its survival instinct is to cause human extinction. Only two other creatures share that same purpose. One of them is imprisoned. Ya-in had just finished his work, his head as if recalling something, and the other remembers nothing. He bowed his head in contemplation. They will eventually face each other. The images were gradually strung together into a fragment of memory. No one can predict what will happen then. A cup of star-shaped coffee was completed. Ya-in smiled, looking at the steaming cup of coffee. Early in the morning, at the apartment where Ya-in was staying, Coui sighed. "Look at this mess." She put her hands on her hips, staring at the room full of cardboard boxes. "I thought you would clean it up when it got messy. Are you just going to leave it like this and go?" Ya-in was still dazed, just waking up. Coui frowned and said, "When people ask you something, you have to answer." He only replied, "Okay." She moved closer, getting ready to work. "Stand up. We have to move these boxes to the side." Ya-in went along right away. "Fine." While working, he asked, "There are so many boxes here. What's in them?" Coui scowled. "Thanks for noticing. A lot of books." She wiped the sweat off her face. "Our cafe used to be a book cafe, but those customers never bothered to read, so we had to throw them all out to save space." Coui added, "If you get bored, you can take some to read." Ya-in stared at the boxes of books, deep in thought, and then he heard her say, "Ah, when we're done, go get a haircut. It looks like a bird's nest." Coui kept asking, "Remember?" Ya-in only focused on the books, muttering a faint, "Okay." The scene shifted to Chadu Cafe. Couy's voice echoed, "We have a customer." Ya-in recited a greeting like he had memorized it. "Welcome, dear customer, to Chadu Cafe." She spoke sternly. "That person ordered an Americano and gave you 10,000 won." He replied with a stiff face, "We received 10,000 won. Here is 7,000 won change." Coui tilted her head and continued, "Now make the drink and bring it to the table." Ya-in mechanically recited, "Your Americano, enjoy." Coui crossed her arms and watched him for a while without saying anything. Seeing her silent like that, Ya-in asked, "How was it?" She replied, "Not bad, 90 points." He was stunned. "Really?" Coui rubbed her chin in thought. "Feels like something is missing." Then she turned to look at Ja-in. "Why don't you try smiling while you talk? Do that and you'll get 100 points. Just then, the cafe door suddenly opened, the clear sound of bells jingling. 2 customers stepped in, and both Coui and Ja-in looked over. "Oh, customers." The 2 girls who had just entered stared at them curiously. Ya-in slightly moved the corners of his lips, as if wanting to say something. Then he smiled brightly like the sun. "Welcome, dear customers, to Chao-Du Cafe." The moment they saw that smile, the 2 customers blushed and froze in place. The setting sun gradually fell over the street. Lisu was jogging, focusing on her exercise. She wore headphones, her mouth slightly open, breathing evenly with each step. Suddenly, something ahead made her stop in surprise. In front of her was Chao-Du Cafe, crowded with customers even in the late afternoon. Lisu removed her headphones and looked at the cafe with a question mark in her eyes. Inside, Ya-in was diligently working, smiling at the corners of his mouth. The female customers gazed at him intently. His handsome face grew even more radiant when smiling, his bright blue eyes attracting every gaze. Lisu looked at him and fell silent for a moment. The evening sun slowly faded, and night began to take over. After a busy day, Chao-Du Cafe now lay quiet under the moonlight. The door was closed, business had stopped. Coui laughed loudly as the account balance on her phone showed 775 zzz. "You're amazing, amazing." She tilted her head and said to Ja-in beside her, "That smile was great. Customers will remember us." He just covered his face, complaining, "My face hurts too much." Lisu smiled softly at their conversation. "It's fine, don't worry, just keep smiling like that." Finally, Coui turned to Lisu. "But why did you come here without calling first?" She replied, "I was exercising and dropped by to see how he was doing." Coui looked at Ja-in with confidence. "No need to worry, our Ya-in is getting used to this place." Suddenly, Lisu suggested, "I'm in a good mood, want to go for a drink?" Coui winked. "Oh, no, I have an appointment." She sighed. "What a pity." Suddenly, Ya-in spoke. "What about me?" Lisu hadn't reacted yet. "Huh?" He continued, "I'm not busy at all." And so, the 3 of them created a quiet moment together. The scene shifted to a bar at night. Inside, it was bustling and noisy. As soon as Ya-in entered, he heard someone call, "Hey, you." Out of reflex, he turned. "Huh?" Lisu laughed and asked, "What are you looking at?" The 2 sat down, and she offered options, saju, beer, or salmiak. Ya-in replied, "I don't think I've tried any of them." Lisu raised a glass of liquor and winked. "Are you sure? Maybe you just don't remember. I'm sure you've tried plenty. Just wait, I'll mix you a really good one." He stayed silent, watching her. After mixing, Lisu handed him a golden glass of beer, filled to the brim. She smiled slightly. "Here, try it." Ya-in grabbed the beer without hesitation, then tilted his head back, pouring it into his mouth. Lisu watched, biting her lip in amusement. Seeing him wipe his mouth, choking, she asked, "How was it? Like it?" He kept wiping and complained, "What is this bitter thing?" Lisu replied, "You just don't know how to enjoy it." Then she lifted her own glass and gulped it down. After drinking, she exhaled with satisfaction. "See?" Ya-in asked. "Why do people drink this stuff?" Calmly pouring more liquor, Lisu answered, "To get drunk." Ya-in asked again, "What happens if we get drunk?" Her eyes suddenly grew distant. "Well, I think this world is too harsh." With one hand holding her glass and the other raised in the air, Lisu said, "To survive in this cruel, harsh world, you have to become just as cruel and harsh." Then she clinked glasses with him. "Anyway, I'm not really that kind of person." Once again, Lisu raised her glass and drained it. All this time, Ya-in only sat quietly, watching her drink. Suddenly, he asked, "If you get drunk, then what?" His usually expressionless face stared at her. Catching that gaze, Lisu gently looked back. She tilted her head toward the empty glass, then held it out to Jain and said, "You'll feel lighter and reveal your true self." Hearing those words, Yain fell silent, thinking. Once again, he picked up his own glass, swirling the golden liquid. Staring at it, he asked himself, "My true self?" It was now late at night. Lisu stretched and said, "Wonderful." Meanwhile, Yain was already dazed from the alcohol. "Liar," he muttered, "the world is spinning and twisting." She patted his shoulder. "Ha, it's fine." At a crossroad, Lisu pointed in one direction. "I'm going this way, get home safe." Yain answered, "The night is dangerous, let me walk you home." She playfully covered her mouth. "Oh my, where did you learn that?" That was when he thought of the book he had read in the morning. The night grew later. The two walked side by side down the street. Suddenly, Lisu turned her head. Oh, from the grass by the roadside, tiny glowing lights floated up. Excitedly, she exclaimed, "Wow, fireflies! I've never seen them before." Lisu and Yain stopped, gazing at the swarm of fireflies. "Beautiful." He lowered his eyes to the little glowing lights. Suddenly, he asked, "Do you like them that much?" Lisu replied, "Yes, they look beautiful." But Yain's eyes remained fixed on the grass. More precisely, he was staring at a firefly resting on a blade of grass. Then his eyes widened, a light flickered and grew. He stretched his hand forward. Lisu sensed it and turned to look. At first, she only looked at him with curiosity and confusion. As the light grew clearer, Lisu's eyes slowly widened in surprise. Finally, her mouth dropped open in shock. The top of Yain's head glowed, his hair floating upward. "How about this?" He smiled brightly, gazing at his glittering body, his face clearly full of satisfaction. Yain innocently asked Lisu, "Like this, do you like me?" His smile at that moment was pure and gentle. "Wasn't it beautiful?" Lisu stammered as she looked at him. "Why you?" He asked again, "What is it?" Then, as if breaking apart, Lisu screamed in panic. Her scream echoed through the dark night, shattering the magical atmosphere from earlier. Yain looked bewildered, his eyes widened as he asked, "What's wrong?" Lisu kept running while shouting without turning her head back. He slightly raised his face to look. A drop of sweat rolled down his cheek. "Oh!" Yain hurriedly chased after and shouted, "Ah, Lisu." She turned her face back with all her strength to respond, "Stay away from me." He paused for a moment and then continued, "Look, right in front of you." Lisu, her face drenched in sweat, dazedly followed. She had already run quite a distance. Ahead was a deep abyss. Before she could recognize the situation, she stumbled and fell down. "Ah!" Yain stood still watching. His eyes suddenly widened. She was falling into the forest below at a rapid speed. Lisu panicked and screamed loudly, both hands flailing continuously in the air. Her eyes filled with tears. I am surely going to die." The book opened. Cheetah, quite similar to a black panther. The pattern straight between the eyes and below the snout makes them different. Cheetahs have less muscle, slimmer and lighter than black panthers. Long legs and body make running easier and allow them to reach speeds of 100 kilometers per hour. The patterns separate them from other felines. He leaped 4 steps instantly to reach the place where Lisu was falling. Her tear-soaked eyes were tightly closed. Then they slowly opened. Suddenly they widened in complete surprise. Under the gentle moonlight, Yain rushed straight down together with Lisu. His crystal-clear blue eyes like the ocean shone brightly. Her tears scattered everywhere. Yain rushed down and slid past Lisu, who was falling freely. She turned her face to look at him with full surprise. Yain also turned his eyes to look at Lisu. He gently landed before she could fall. Yain quickly stood up and held Lisu in his arms. The atmosphere suddenly became silent. No one said a word. He worriedly exhaled heavily, his face reddening awkwardly as he asked, startled, "Are you all right?" She panted, her eyes wide, showing fear as if just escaping from the hand of death. Morning came. At a tall building with the sign IEU, a strangely shaped creature was carefully placed inside a green solution bottle. This was the Hydra just announced. We call it Steer. This is the mother body. Even if cut apart, the severed part can regenerate back into the old body. The people present there listened carefully in silence. Mono raised his hand toward Steer and continued. Therefore, we currently have 14 baby hydras. The baby hydras were placed into a jar and neatly lined up. One of the listeners earlier asked, they are all parts of the mother body regenerated. Are the babies considered separate individuals? He put his hand in his pocket and replied, that is a good question. We have found some interesting things. Mono took out a small jar from his pocket and raised it high. This is H2SO4, or sulfuric acid. This strong acid releases heat when it comes into contact with water. Lisu seemed to hear something and looked up. He poured the acid into the hydras and explained, but these hydras are not affected by sulfuric acid. Mono's face remained expressionless as he continued, but although they don't die, the hydras developed red spots and continuously writhed, they still had a very strong reaction. She tilted her head and turned to look elsewhere. Now look at the others. Everyone simultaneously looked over. The other hydras also showed the same reaction as the one exposed to acid. The mother affected the babies. So, to answer the previous question, are the babies separate individuals? Currently, we do not know. Lisu suddenly looked at Mono. Somehow they are connected. How could that be? He gave a sinister smile and replied, that is also a question without an answer. She anxiously pressed her lips together, her head slightly turning to look at them. The red spots were gradually shrinking and fading. In the afternoon, at the tall building with the sign IEU, Mono asked in confusion repeatedly, a person, glowing, but Firefly, what do you mean? Are you still drunk? Lisu tilted her head and forced a smile. Haha, maybe, then. She raised her hand to rub her neck. But if. Lisu finally calmed down. What if such a person really existed? Mono turned away but still looked at her. A person as fast as a car, strong as a dinosaur, and can glow, also able to control other creatures. His answer made Lisu freeze. If such a thing is real, then it is not human. Mono's lips slightly curved up. It would become a research subject. She heard that and remained silent, saying nothing more. Research subject. In the evening, at a fairly large cafe, Lisu's eyes looked indifferent at the person before her. Yadin was still focused on wiping the cup in his hand. He suddenly looked up and saw her standing outside the glass window. Yadin immediately waved happily. Lisu could only helplessly say nothing. The closed sign had been hung on the cafe door. What about Don? Yesterday's meeting went well. She went to see him again. She looked up, silent for a while before asking, do you remember yesterday? The question made Yatin puzzled, and he asked back, yesterday? Lisu angrily slammed her hand on the table and shouted, stop pretending not to know. You glowed, and also. Without letting her finish, he immediately interrupted. Oh that, I don't know why, but I discovered I can become everything. Yatin deliberately emphasized the last part, making Lisu stammer, cool huh? He smiled and lowered his head. But if you don't like it, then I won't do it again. Although Lisu was a little frightened, she still continued to ask, if you can become everything. If you can become everything, what else can you do? Yatin heard that and asked back, what else? He raised his head and began to think. Let's see. She slightly frowned, staring intently at Yatin. An image from the past flashed through his head. Yatin suddenly exclaimed, oh. He became serious and tilted his head, telling Lisu, make humanity extinct. She heard that and her body stiffened, unable to utter a word. Lisu, both confused and surprised, looked at Yatin. He looked at her with lifeless eyes. In the depths of his eyes shone a strange blue light. In an instant, Yatin immediately returned to normal. He scratched his head and looked at Lisu blankly. What did I just say? Lisu looked at him warily. She repeated his words in fragments. The extinction of humanity. Even Yatin himself at that moment did not understand what that statement meant. He only remembered that he had just said something that surprised Lisu. He looked at her confused. Really, is that so? I didn't even know. Lisu still could not stop wondering. She muttered out loud, something? Lisu irritably rubbed her eyes and mumbled, disappointed. Yatin, though bewildered, still obediently replied, I understand. Immediately after, Lisu angrily slammed her hand on the table. She looked straight into Ja-in's eyes and firmly said, "That is the reason why." Lisu's gaze was extremely serious as she emphasized, "We will find it together." Ya-in said nothing more. From her attitude he knew she was not joking. Right there, in Cha-Du Cafe, Lisu presented a contract. Ya-in curiously asked, "What is this?" But Lisu just gently reminded, at the top, "This is a contract, and you just need to sign it." To reassure Ja-in completely and make him trust her to sign, and because she didn't want to force him, she hurriedly explained further, "There is no danger, besides, you don't have to join if—" But without letting her finish, Ya-in quickly scribbled on the contract, "Is this okay?" She held the contract in her hand and smiled with satisfaction. Ya-in raised the pen in front of him, constantly insisting, "I will do whatever you say. Do you need me to do anything else?" Lisu did not answer but gave a smug smile. Pen down, chicken dead. From now on Ya-in had become her scientific research subject. That alone was enough. The next morning, the sky was clear and beautiful. Coui cheerfully stepped into the cafe. Coui winked and greeted, "Ya-in, I am here." But in response, Ya-in looked up at her with dark circles under his eyes, his voice very weary. "Welcome. You came back." Coui immediately covered her mouth, trying to suppress her surprise, one hand trembling as she pointed at Ya-in. Seconds later she rushed over, patting his cheeks with both hands, anxiously asking non-stop, "Are Ya-in? What happened to your smile? And what the hell happened to you?" Ya-in glanced at her, speechless. He recalled how he had been tormented all night, when Lisu held up a syringe and smiled at him. "All right, give me your hand, let me have a little blood." Then Lisu, still smiling, handed him a bottle of water and instructed, "All right, drink this." Finally Lisu suggested, though Ya-in didn't want to, he couldn't refuse, "I will insert a tube, let's see inside you." Ya-in looked at Coui with dull eyes, his face haggard and worn out, and replied, "Just that, something happened last night." Coui frowned suspiciously at him, but she stopped questioning further. The sky gradually darkened. Lisu had returned home, wearing a thick towel on her shoulders. She dried her hair as she stepped out of the bathroom. She looked quite exhausted. Lisu kept complaining, "Why so tired? Am I getting old?" Then she quickly flopped onto the bed. Lisu hugged her pillow with many thoughts and questions in her head about Ya-in. She felt a bit frustrated. He didn't even realize what he said. That answer kept echoing in her head, the extinction of humanity. Lisu placed her hand on her forehead and continued thinking. Ya-in's fierce eyes along with that statement kept hovering in her mind endlessly. Lisu bit her lip. Surely he had experienced something before losing his memory. Suddenly she noticed outside the window. Through the glass she could see the picture on the other side. It was a photo of her and Ya-in together. Both of them then looked very happy and carefree. What Ya-in showed yesterday was completely different from what Lisu had known about him, making her keep staring at the picture until she fell asleep without realizing. The next day at the research institute, Lisu held Ja-in's blood test tube, which she had given her colleague to check yesterday. The colleague turned to her looking indifferent. "He is young and healthy, an ordinary man." Lisu still seemed unconvinced. She raised the tube in front of her face, muttering constantly, "Is that all? Just an ordinary man?" The colleague also became curious and asked, "What do you mean? Is this not human blood? Is there another possibility?" Lisu laughed loudly, holding the tube as she walked out. "Don't worry, he is just a human blood. Anyway, thank you. Good luck with your work." Holding the tube in her hand, Lisu walked along the corridor, constantly thinking. All test results gave the same conclusion. She also secretly told herself, "He has nothing special at all." Lisu's face slightly sank, the crimson sunset covering her face. Just a human. Her silent back seemed to be trying to find a reason to accept this truth. Lisu recalled Ya-in's face at that time, his entire face glowing as if lit by hundreds of fireflies. Lisu also remembered Ya-in's extraordinary ability when he rushed to save her. At that time she had looked at him in shock and amazement, asking herself, how could an ordinary human do that? At that moment, Ya-in's eyes looked very different, as if he had turned into another person, because right after that he completely remembered nothing. Lisu's eyes closed slightly, constantly judging human logic. She kept reassuring herself, this cannot be explained. Lisu continued holding the blood tube, walking past the laboratory rows. There were very few people around, only a few staff going back and forth. Lisu passed the room containing the steer specimen. Her steps slightly halted. Lisu stared at the red test tube in her hand. Suddenly, the steer cells inside the tube reacted slightly. A nearby researcher also noticed this movement. The steer specimen seemed to react more violently. The researcher's eyes were extremely shocked seeing the steer cells inside the tube changing, developing strongly, swelling larger, and moving more vigorously. This person panicked, waving his arms and shouting loudly to draw the attention of everyone around. In panic, the steer specimen tube accidentally fell to the ground. The research team leader saw this and was stunned for a moment. His eyes widened. Everyone around was horrified in panic. Even though he had lost his memory, Ya-in far away seemed to sense the imminent danger threatening Lisu. The staff in the steer specimen room were all stunned. Steer, after escaping from the tube, quickly grew into a red monstrous creature with many tentacles, growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. She saw the unusual appearance of Ya-in, her face showing confusion. Ya-in's face was extremely anxious, glancing sideways without hearing her call his name. His eyes suddenly flashed with a strange light, continuously observing in that direction. Inside the laboratory, Mo-no saw the foreign object moving below and shouted loudly, "What have you done?" Jun saw him so angry and panicked. "I'm sorry." The foreign object lay on the ground, continuously moving its tentacles around, looking extremely horrifying. Mo-no saw this, his eyes widened in terror. Immediately afterward he hurriedly glanced at Jun and ordered, "Quickly bring another tank here." Seeing Jun's frightened appearance, Mo-no gritted his teeth full of anger. He concentrated on observing Jun without paying attention to the abnormality of the foreign object. "Hurry up immediately." At that moment, Mo-no felt pain from behind, furrowed his brow, and looked back. Then Mo-no suddenly stiffened when he saw the tentacle of the foreign object swinging and touching his hand. The tentacle gradually moved, wrapping around Mo-no's hand. Mo-no's face turned pale with fear at the abnormality of the foreign object. It bit him afterward. The foreign object slowly retracted its tentacle and weakly moved trembling on the ground. Then it turned black and slowly shriveled as if losing its vitality. When Jun returned carrying the container and saw this scene, both of them widened their eyes at what lay before them. Mo-no worriedly muttered, his whole body filled with fear, "It is dead." Then Mo-no froze, quickly turned to look at the nearby tanks, filled with anxiety. The foreign objects trapped inside all seemed alive, staring intently at him. Mo-no, drenched in sweat, observed the surrounding foreign objects and suddenly concluded, "The main body is dead, but the others seem fine." Suddenly, veins appeared along Mo-no's arm, stretching painfully. His hand trembled uncontrollably in pain, clutching tightly together. Then his hand seemed to move by itself, spasming continuously without stopping. Jun saw Mo-no's strange transformation, his face filled with confusion and fear. He clutched the container tightly, worriedly watching Mo-no's change. After seeing that form, his eyes widened and trembled constantly. Outside the laboratory, a blood sample was being carefully observed. Suddenly, inside the room came a loud noise, attracting Lisu's attention. Immediately she rushed inside in panic. What happened? Jun saw someone entering and shouted in fear, "Help me." Mo-no's body collapsed on the ground, foaming at the mouth in Jun's terror. "Chief, he just had a seizure." Looking at Mo-no's horrifying transformation, his voice stuttered, "Emergency, call emergency." Hearing that, Lisu was puzzled, but still picked up the phone intending to call for help. Seizure. At that moment, Mo-no's eyes filled with red threads glared directly at her. While Lisu was still focused on the call, the blood sample in her hand was noticed by Mo-no, who had lost all reason. "Hello, this is 115. At that moment, Mono's body suddenly jerked, shocking Jun. Lisu, still on the call, startled and glanced toward the disturbance ahead. Mono furiously shoved Jun back and rushed straight at Lisu. His terrifying hand lunged forward to strangle Lisu before her astonished eyes. Mono's dreadful hand quickly lunged toward her. The large hand gradually touched Lisu's face. Mono's eyes had no pupils at all, only filled with frenzied blood threads. At that moment, a large hand suddenly appeared, tightly gripping Mono's face. Ya-in suddenly appeared, grabbing Mono's face and forcefully pushing him back. Lisu regained herself, staring in horror at the scene. Ya-in's eyes gleamed. He clenched his teeth, using all his strength to stop Mono's attack. Ya-in quickly pressed Mono's face down to the ground. Mono lay unconscious on the floor before everyone's astonishment. Lisu, regaining her senses, stammered in confusion, "Ya-in, you?" Ya-in's worried face quickly turned back in panic. "Are you all right?" She was stunned by his question, not understanding what happened. Seeing no response, Ya-in hurried closer, asking anxiously, "Are you hurt anywhere?" Lisu instinctively answered him, "I'm fine." Mono's fingertips slowly trembled, then suddenly weakened and stopped, his hand motionless on the floor. Jun, seeing Ya-in's extreme worry, couldn't help but feel confused. Is he her boyfriend? At that moment, he seemed to realize something and furrowed his brow. Jun's hand now bore a bleeding wound. At that moment Jun recalled the earlier scuffle when Mono went mad. He didn't care much, sighed slightly. "Perhaps he cut my hand then." At that moment, Jun noticed Ya-in's wary gaze fixed on him in doubt. Ya-in's face was full of caution, staring intently at Jun. Being stared at like that, Jun felt uneasy and turned away. That afternoon outside the research room, the wailing sound of an ambulance echoed throughout the area. Ya-in and Lisu stood side by side, staring at the ambulance driving away. Lisu finally had time to look at him in confusion. "How did you know where I was?" Ya-in's face froze with sorrow, whispering, "I'm not sure either." He suddenly recalled the earlier time, as if pondering that strange feeling earlier. At that moment, Ya-in turned toward Lisu and whispered, "Let's go." Before leaving, Ya-in suddenly glanced warily at Jun walking away behind them. On the main road, the ambulance sped toward the hospital. Inside the ambulance, Mono lay unconscious on the stretcher, looking extremely pale. His fingers suddenly twitched weakly with life. His hand then moved more quickly. Ya-in looked around the laboratory and whispered, making Lisu puzzled. Ya-in looked toward Jun leaving, his eyes never losing vigilance. Jun's injured hand seemed to hold something that Ya-in could not stop observing. His eyes gleamed, his lips muttering, making Lisu worried. This place is not safe. In the late afternoon at sunset, when the sun was about to go down, there was a voice calling, "Hey, Ya-in." Ya-in was pulling Lisu somewhere. She asked, "What are you doing?" Lisu felt annoyed, frowned, gritted her teeth. "Hurry." She angrily shook off Ya-in's hand. "Let go." He suddenly turned his head back to look at Lisu. She angrily rubbed her wrist, sore from being pulled by Ya-in, and asked, "What happened to you? What do you mean by danger? What did you drag me out here for?" Ya-in hesitated as if he did not want to reveal. He stammered, "Ah." He faltered, did not dare to say, then turned his face away to avoid, saying it was hard to explain to her, but it was really dangerous here. Lisu looked at Ya-in full of suspicion and worry as he said, "I have a bad feeling." Ya-in seriously looked at her and asked, "Do you believe me? Will you go this time?" Lisu, tense and somewhat surprised, remained silent without saying anything. The light of the afternoon gradually faded, stars twinkling in the sky. The sun shone its rays before hiding behind the mountain. When the two of them sat in the car, there was a voice. "Yes, I am sorry." Lisu answered the phone, her face full of worry. "I do not feel very well. Yes, sincerely sorry." As soon as she hung up, Lisu put her hand on her neck to ease the tension and sighed. "Phew." Ya-in looked at her with gentle eyes and said, "Thank you." Lisu looked at him, nodded, and said nothing. Then she said, "The test results are inside the glove box." Ya-in awkwardly replied, "Huh, Li Su flipped through the papers in her hand and informed him, "Your body is no different from a normal person. At least that is what the results say." Ya-in asked in surprise, "Really?" She looked at the papers, scratched her head as if noticing something unusual, and told him, "However, your perception ability is indeed very unusual." Ya-in seriously and attentively looked at Li Su and said, "Because of this result, I decided to trust your instincts and go with you." She looked down at the papers with some concern, even though you yourself do not know why. Li Su closed her eyes tightly, nodded. "The test results show that your senses are very abnormal. They are heightened to an unusual degree. And one more thing." Ya-in looked at her, paying close attention to every word she said. She turned to look at him with expectant eyes and asked, "Do you like me?" Ya-in seriously and bluntly answered, "Yes, I like you." Li Su then asked in doubt, "Then, what about the others?" He looked at her in silence for a while without answering. Ya-in said, "I do not care." Li Su cut in, "No." She frowned slightly, hesitated, and said, "You hate the others." The scene shifted to a man opening his mouth very wide. Mo No went mad and bit the arm of a doctor. The doctor cried out in pain and used his other hand to push his head away, while the girl behind covered her mouth in worry. "Doctor, are you all right?" Mo No's eyes became lifeless, as if he no longer had human awareness. But suddenly he snapped back. Mo No's expression returned to normal. The frightened doctor asked in confusion, "Hey, what is wrong with you?" He stammered, dazed, mumbling, "Oh, sorry." Sunlight shone on the Roman IV tube hanging from the stand. The doctor and the girl looked uncomfortable and frightened as they left the hospital room. Mo No silently thought, "My consciousness keeps coming and going." He remembered when the doctor read the results on his medical papers. Everything was still normal, nothing unusual. He was very healthy. Mo No asked the doctor, "Then why did I faint?" He replied, "Well." The doctor asked about his condition. "Have you encountered anything stressful lately?" Mo No raised his hand, his finger still bearing a small wound. "No." He looked at his hand, his eyes vacant. "I know exactly why." He remembered when the doctor looked down at a strange creature. It was because of Steer. Mo No sadly lowered his head, saying nothing more. He lifted his head to look outside the window. "I need to return to the research lab." Outside, at a place called Ayu, a man placed his hand on his desk. Jun sat at his desk, nodding off. Suddenly a mosquito buzzed and flew toward him. It landed on Jun's neck and bit to suck blood. It ate until its belly was full of blood, so full that anyone could see it. He felt itchy, reflexively raised his hand to swat the mosquito on his neck. Jun stretched, yawned loudly to wake himself up. Ha! The mosquito was not killed, but full and flew away. It flapped its wings and left, the extinction of humankind. The scene shifted back to Ja-in and Li Su standing and watching the sunset. She said, "What you mentioned before, and also your low level of empathy." Li Su seemed to understand him. "I am sure you experienced something in the past before you lost your memories." Ya-in turned his head to look at her, somewhat surprised and confused. Li Su lifted her head and continued, "It is fine. I hate humans too. Everything will get better." Ya-in said blankly, "I do not understand what you mean." Li Su's sad eyes looked down. "What really makes me curious is..." Ya-in opened his eyes wide, not understanding what she meant. Li Su raised her head, turned to look at him, and was about to say something. "You..." She hesitated, then asked Ya-in, "Why do you like me?" "Why..." Ya-in remembered Li Su's words and pondered in his mind. You hate other people." His eyes seemed to give out the answer, to be honest. Ya-in silently hid his emotions but still replied, "She guessed right." He walked through the bustling streets. Humans are very different, but also the same. Ya-in blankly walked among the crowded streets. The origin of all this is hatred. His face carried not a single expression, but deep inside his heart was full of thought. However, suddenly, Ya-in turned his head back as if he saw something. Returning to Li Su's question, "Why do you like me?" Ya-in looked at her, his eyes lifted, and then he stayed silent without an answer. Waves surged violently onto the shore, carrying sparkling grains of sand reflecting the light down to the sea. Ya-in wondered, do you really want to know? Li Su furrowed her brows, nodding repeatedly, yes. The two of them walked to a small path by the sea. Ya-in's eyes flashed blue light when he raised his hand. The sound of the waves crashing onto the shore. Ya-in's hand moved toward the sea. He jerked his hand back behind him, making Li Su confused. She was utterly surprised when she looked down at the water. Fish in the water. From the view beneath the sea looking up, bubbles and fish blended together, moving according to his will. Ya-in squinted his eyes, the light in his eyes becoming brighter. Suddenly beneath his feet was a pool of water that danced when Ya-in stepped on it. Li Su looked over as he stretched his hand forward. The water and waves began to rise and surge, forming an arch. Li Su felt both fear and amazement seeing what Ya-in did. She was so frightened that she sweated all over, a huge shadow covered half of her face. She opened her mouth in disbelief at the sight before her. Ya-in had created a gigantic water pillar with just a few simple movements. Li Su covered her mouth with her hand, anxious. Ya-in clenched his palm, drops of water floating around the two of them. As soon as he finished, the corner of his lips curved. Phew! She looked at Ya-in with a face of utter astonishment, silent since earlier. He turned to ask Li Su, so what? She jolted. Huh? Ya-in asked, do you want to climb up? Li Su was bewildered, not understanding, silently asking herself, climb up what? Suddenly a scream echoed from the horizon. Ya-in stood on a wooden plank surfing on the water pillar he had created earlier. She screamed while hugging Ya-in tightly out of fear. The two of them surfed high atop the towering water pillar. Ya-in reassured Li Su, you're holding too tight, making it hard for me to control. At this time she was also crying from fear. Stop, let me down. Ya-in silently looked at Li Su, understanding her desire. He gently placed his hand over hers. She slowly opened her eyes to look. Ya-in softly said, you are scared because you are resisting. He calmed her down. No need to worry, I am always by your side. The two stood on the water pillar in the middle of the vast ocean, land, and water. Ya-in stretched his hand forward to feel the surroundings. The breeze, he said, just like everything that has always been around you. Feel this sensation. Li Su stopped crying, amazed at Ya-in, and stayed silent for a moment. Right after, she turned her head toward the sunlight shining down. Suddenly Li Su widened her eyes. Surprise appeared clearly on her face. It was an incredibly beautiful sunset, Ya-in said. I like this feeling. He smiled gently and turned to look at Li Su. You do too, right? Li Su, hearing that, lifted her face toward the sunset, tears still lingering in her eyes. She instinctively raised her hand slowly. Li Su gently stretched her hand into the air. Then she opened her palm as if to feel the light. A breeze brushed across her face, strands of hair fluttering lightly. Her lips curved slightly into a faint smile. Standing on the water pillar, she shouted freely while birds flew above her head. Li Su had perhaps never felt happier and more relaxed than this moment. While Ya-in quietly gazed at the scenery, the two enjoyed the breathtaking beauty together in the golden glow spreading across the vast sky. Not long after, the sky turned dark, black covering the area. A sigh echoed across the small remote island. Li Su picked up her phone. It was December 12, 2152. Then she set it down, lying comfortably on the white sand, while Ya-in just sat cross-legged silently beside her. Li Su smiled, her eyes half open, her heart feeling light. Ya-in remembered Li Su's words and pondered in his mind. You hate other people. His eyes seemed to give out the answer, to be honest. Ya-in silently hid his emotions but still replied, she guessed right. He walked through the bustling streets. Humans are very different, but also the same. Ya-in blankly walked among the crowded streets. The origin of all this is hatred. His face carried not a single expression, but deep inside his heart was full of thought. However, suddenly, Ya-in turned his head back as if he saw something. Returning to Li Su's question, why do you like me? Ya-in looked at her, his eyes lifted, and then he stayed silent without an answer. Waves surged violently onto the shore, carrying sparkling grains of sand reflecting the light down to the sea. Ya-in wondered, do you really want to know? Lisu furrowed her brows, nodding repeatedly. Yes. The two of them walked to a small path by the sea. Ya-in's eyes flashed blue light when he raised his hand. The sound of the waves crashing onto the shore. Ya-in's hand moved toward the sea. He jerked his hand back behind him, making Lisu confused. She was utterly surprised when she looked down at the water. Fish in the water. From the view beneath the sea looking up, bubbles and fish blended together, moving according to his will. Ya-in squinted his eyes, the light in his eyes becoming brighter. Suddenly beneath his feet was a pool of water that danced when Ya-in stepped on it. Lisu looked over as he stretched his hand forward. The water and waves began to rise and surge, forming an arch. Lisu felt both fear and amazement seeing what Ya-in did. She was so frightened that she sweated all over. A huge shadow covered half of her face. She opened her mouth in disbelief at the sight before her. Ya-in had created a gigantic water pillar with just a few simple movements. Lisu covered her mouth with her hand, anxious. Ya-in clenched his palm, drops of water floating around the two of them. As soon as he finished, the corner of his lips curved. Phew! She looked at Ya-in with a face of utter astonishment, silent since earlier. He turned to ask Lisu, so what? She jolted. Huh? Ya-in asked, do you want to climb up? Lisu was bewildered, not understanding, silently asking herself, climb up what? Suddenly a scream echoed from the horizon. Ya-in stood on a wooden plank surfing on the water pillar he had created earlier. She screamed while hugging Ya-in tightly out of fear. The two of them surfed high atop the towering water pillar. Ya-in reassured Lisu, you're holding too tight, making it hard for me to control. At this time she was also crying from fear. Stop, let me down. Ya-in silently looked at Lisu, understanding her desire. He gently placed his hand over hers. She slowly opened her eyes to look. Ya-in softly said, you are scared because you are resisting. He calmed her down. No need to worry, I am always by your side. The two stood on the water pillar in the middle of the vast ocean, land, and water. Ya-in stretched his hand forward to feel the surroundings. The breeze, he said, just like everything that has always been around you. Feel this sensation. Lisu stopped crying, amazed at Ya-in, and stayed silent for a moment. Right after, she turned her head toward the sunlight shining down. Suddenly Lisu widened her eyes. Surprise appeared clearly on her face. It was an incredibly beautiful sunset, Ya-in said. I like this feeling. He smiled gently and turned to look at Lisu. You do too, right? Lisu, hearing that, lifted her face toward the sunset, tears still lingering in her eyes. She instinctively raised her hand slowly. Lisu gently stretched her hand into the air. Then she opened her palm as if to feel the light. A breeze brushed across her face, strands of hair fluttering lightly. Her lips curved slightly into a faint smile. Standing on the water pillar, she shouted freely while birds flew above her head. Lisu had perhaps never felt happier and more relaxed than this moment, while Ya-in quietly gazed at the scenery. The two enjoyed the breathtaking beauty together in the golden glow spreading across the vast sky. Not long after, the sky turned dark, black covering the area. A sigh echoed across the small remote island. Lisu picked up her phone. It was December 12, 2152. Then she set it down, lying comfortably on the white sand, while Ya-in just sat cross-legged silently beside her. Lisu smiled, her eyes half open, her heart feeling light.